Right then. So here we are on the main stage, going live as usual. Fuck me. I forgot. Chris reminded me.
I'm going to take me out for a change, actually. I'm going to get the fucking hair out. I could always wear the fucking hat.
I like to wear a hat and contain my satellite forehead.
Mine's receding. I caught King Canute sat on my forehead the other day, trying to hold it back. You know what I mean? Fucking hell. It's getting grey as well. Atoms. Brilliant.
Right. So we was having a conversation about cannabis, weren't we? And now it affects, you know, the pharmaceutical industry and the truth behind that. And we was having quite a chat as well in the WhatsApp and talking about why not add a section to the website, because it is quite a controversial topic. It's quite taboo when it comes to the mainstream society and cannabis, and it makes you lazy or it causes mental health problems, etc., etc. But what are the true fundamentals of it? That's what we've been talking about. The true fundamentals of the cost to grow a cannabis plant, its effects, its positives, what we have recorded now just through the basis of communicating over the World Wide Web. Like me and Chris, we've met over the World Wide Web and exchanged many ideas, exchanged much information, and both grew as people because of it. And that also comes consequently when it comes to researching anything on the internet and discovering the truth, which is why we always say here, the truth is out there, because it really is. And it's the same with cannabis. We can show you footage after footage after footage of kids having seizures, people with Parkinson's, cancer victims. But the seizures and the Parkinson's, they're the two big ones, wouldn't you agree, Chris, in terms of the footage?
I do, yeah.
At least the ones that I've seen, the Parkinson's and kids having seizures is like a massive one. The pain relief is obviously a universal one.
I've got a friend, very, very, very close friend, who's got a son, and he's got a thing called Dravet syndrome. And basically, it's seizures. Okay, now these seizures can just happen, like change of temperature. He can have a seizure. He gets overexcited, has a seizure, and what it kind of does is his aging process is kind of slowed. So at birth, his aging was okay, but now it's sort of his body is getting more advanced than his brain does due to the seizures and the amount of seizures he has. Okay, and they've only now, after the mum's gone on and on and on, prescribed him CBD. Okay, and the progress at the moment is they start him off on a very, very, very low dose. Okay, and obviously increase the dose until the seizures sort of level itself out. But at the moment, it's really positive for him. You know what I mean? So
it changes people's life.
It does, and the thing is, though, like I said, how much does that cost? That's the problem at the moment, is the costing of it all. It's quite expensive, you know what I'm saying? He's lucky he gets funding, but, you know, it is expensive. And that's a problem.
I'm going to put on a video right now on the screen for you guys to watch of a guy with Parkinson's, just to kick off the stream. Let me just drag this in. Absolutely wonderful.
Is he saying worry about it or expect it?
Oh wait, what's going on here? Is it
loading? Yeah, realistic.
That's the way that I can describe it. It's a matter of time. We will transition, we'll pass.
That's the situation. That's the situation.
So, you know, it's just a matter of making it properly.
Absolutely.
In addition to that, there is also susceptibility for prostate.
I know someone who smokes it for MS. There you go, MS. All kinds of problems. It just fucking, whether it cures them, right, temporarily, or alleviates the pain, the symptoms of it, and even in some cases, in fact, even in a lot of cases, I'm being conservative here, but it's I ought to be honest on a stream of this nature. I'm being conservative when I say there's only a few benefits to cannabis in terms of medical problems. It's not fucking true. Even when people have a problem where they have to take medication, you know, cannabis isn't going to solve it, but they have to take medication, right? Well, like sometimes these medications can cause what would it be? Side effects. Sometimes these medications can cause side effects, but they still have to take the medication. Cannabis isn't a miracle drug. It won't cure everything, right? But it's just one of the many positives. And this leads on to the point that it suppresses the side effects of bad medications that you know, you still need to take, that cannabis can't solve the root problem of. So it has a very wide array of uses. And here's the thing that always crosses my mind, right? We know about cannabis, right? We know about poppies and opioids and things like that. How many fucking plants do we have on the planet? But we've settled on a few, and we know through a lot of history, right, that we used to smoke fucking everything that was green on the fucking floor. You know, oh, Fred died of that one. That one's poison. You know, that was basically the depth of our research into smoking things. And you go into the jungle, some of the Amazonian tribes that have had no contact with anything. I guarantee they have an array of things that they smoke, eat, and fucking consume, right, in a multiplex of ways, right, which they have medical uses for, and they probably help. They're real, like, natural herbal medicines. And here's the thing, right, herbal medication is real. There is types of herbal medication, but it's being slandered, just like the UFO thing. So we know about the UFOs, right, is that they put out, they slandered it. They basically was like, they took the piss out of it. They made it a gimmick, right? They made the whole fucking UFO thing a gimmick. And was like, I'll put it on lunch boxes, the big green head or whatever. Yet we know there was recorded fucking documents. You can go and look at them on the official FBI website of 4-foot men being pulled from the crash at Roswell. So we know that there's fucking more going on. But in order to cover these truths, which are in plain sight in front of your eyes, they belittle them, they degrade them, like the whole Illuminati thing. You know, it became a joke and a meme, and everyone joked about it, and it, like, you know, went away in the wind. When it starts to get too much press and attention, they belittle it, they destroy it in the media and the mainstream. And the same has been done with cannabis, the same has been done with any herbal medication, the same has been done with aliens, the same has been done with banks and debt, the same has been done with every single control structure that the governments and the deep elite have in place. It is either fortified if it's with the agenda, or it is destroyed, belittled, and deconstructed if it is not. And it's the exact same point across the board when it comes to politics and arguing a side of opinion, like Tommy Robinson. He's, you know, they don't talk about the fact that his statistics and his research and, you know, the demographics and the facts of what he's saying, they don't talk about that, even though that has, like, a lot of basis, right? And it's true what Tommy Robinson's talking about when it comes to these problems. They only talk about the small snippet, like ex-EDL leader. You see it at the start of every article, at the start of every TV interview. So we have here Tommy Robinson, the ex-leader of the EDL. Not fucking anything else, you know? It's bullshit and it needs to stop.
Hopeless feeling that struggling to help somebody.
This is true.
Exactly what the feeling of how I described.
This is true.
They make billions and billions. That's why years ago they made themselves better.
It's like the hemp plant, though, isn't it? We was talking about the hemp plant. You know what I mean? God gave us a plant, right, that could give us fuel, that can give us clothing, that can give us medicine. You understand what I'm saying? And the bloody Satanists take it away from us. Simple. Greed. Greed. Imagine being able to put a pair of jeans that lasted 6 years. Mate. You know what I'm saying? It's just fucking ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Car fueled on cannabis oil, which Henry T. Ford developed an engine for it.
Yeah. Before
it was made illegal. Right? So we'd have no pollution. Okay, all our cardboards would be made out of hemp, which is 100% biodegradable, etc., etc., etc. We wouldn't need plastics. It could be made into so many things, and yet gone. And it infuriates me. It really does. It really does. Being a lifetime smoker.
What is this? What is that? Totally.
And me mum and dad. But there you go. That's the 60s for you, isn't it?
One thing is for sure, he was.
You know what I mean?
I mean, almost 100% accurate.
Oh dear.
I let go of anxiety. I let go of concern. I felt relief. There were lots of little things that he said that made me relieved. I was helped, and he is truly something in terms of his skill with this. I'm impressed.
Look at this. So I've got the video up here.
How does he know all the names and exactly what?
Hi Larry, how are you?
Yeah,
Come in.
Really?
And I'm not saying that I'm cheerful. I'm just
How you feeling? It's been a bit of a rough week. Really.
Look at this guy.
And the best way to take it is put it under your tongue and rub it in your cheek. Don't do too much. You're going to be asleep all afternoon. You know what you should do? No. Don't try to communicate. Just relax. See what happens.
We know from animal experiments that the endogenous cannabinoid system is very important in regulating motor activity, that very type of activity that is impaired in Parkinson's disease. From animal experiments, we also know that boosting certain branches of the endocannabinoid system is helpful in relieving symptoms of Parkinson's.
Amazing.
Finally, from anecdotal
The problem
information,
they have is, even though
we
it's
know
legal in
that
individual
certain
states,
patients who smoke
the
marijuana
federal state,
experience
wherever it's
relief
illegal, isn't it?
of their symptoms.
I think you're calmed down.
So they can't put their money in federal banks, can they?
So this guy's standing up now.
Amazing.
He's just finished the
He
medication.
used just a
watch the
single
rest of it.
drop, and his hands afterwards were rock steady, and the dyskinesia left.
Who was just coming back?
It works most of the time.
Yeah, there we go.
In fact, it's. Did you guys eat lunch?
Are you hungry now?
But I am. Actually,
A person like me could really use marijuana. It makes me pretty angry that I can't get it in my home state.
The number one frustration that I have is
Right, and then he goes into obviously the principles of what's going on, which is, but we were already talking about that. But yeah, there you see it. Someone with Parkinson's that's like fucking shaking, cannot control their movement, they're all over to that. So rock steady. Steadier than I can probably hold my hands. It's like, fuck at me. Unbelievable.
Tinfoil hat, I agree with you, man. Absolutely.
They got the Cancer Act in Parliament too.
1939, yeah, I've seen that.
What's the Cancer Act?
Oh, fucking hell, I have read this. You're going to call me out now, but I have read this. Somebody else showed this to me. I'll look it up.
It has many uses, though. It has many uses. The oil, just the CBD, right? And so they're trying to regulate the CBD, but then they've opened a place in Manchester.
That's it. That's what I remember. What the Cancer Act was doing. Off the cuff of my head, it was something to do about if you find a cure for cancer, you're not allowed to tell anybody, or you could be arrested for it. Something along that lines. Off the top of my cuff of my head, I may be wrong, but that's something in it. It's really, you have to look it up. Look up the Cancer Act. It's quite something on this Cancer Act.
So, right here we've got an article here for Britain's first specialist medical cannabis clinic opens in Greater Manchester.
Yeah.
So if we scroll down and find the price, it will reportedly cost around £200 to see a doctor at the new clinic, then £600 to £700 a month for private prescriptions of cannabis. However, the clinic insists that the service is aimed at people who have exhausted all existing treatment options. So, yeah, whatever. Load of shit, but it's a sellout.
Oh yeah, because that's another interesting thing that they've done as well. So I'm looking through the Cancer Act. Do you know about sound? Sound waves. There's certain sound waves that can kill cancers, isn't there?
Yeah.
So then, if you go to the Cancer Act here, it says the most notable provision is a clause prohibiting taking any part in publication except under specified conditions of advertisements that offer to treat any person for cancer or to prescribe any remedy therefore or to give any advice in connection with the treatment thereof. Prosecutions do take place but are rare. Okay? But it's the expression, advertisement includes any notice, circulable, or other document, any announcement made orally by any means of producing or transmitting sounds.
My grandma, she meant everything to not just me, but the entire Jones family. And like, I have a big music connection because of my grandma. So she's important. She's important. He got it.
And just popping in that I have to acknowledge. The feeling is life gets cut too short, or like someone passes away before their time. And when it comes to, he acknowledges reference to music, he's showing that legacy being continued on.
There's one case. There's one case here. Someone was given a 2-year conditional discharge that cost £1,100 August for offering herbal remedies for cancer.
I like it.
It's amazing because right now I'm working on music, but on record. And it's just a beautiful connection, and it's often a love and hit.
That's why can't wait to hear it? Though.
Yeah.
Clearly, is really happy about that. That's awesome.
Yes, of course.
There is an acknowledgement in the way this is too of him basically bringing up this fact of showing me soulmate, and he's very instinct, like automatic, insistent, very, very. It's like coming through so strongly. It's like soulmate. Like, even.
Fuck me, why is that?
Yeah. I mean,
Why would they do that if they're on our side? Cancer research getting 80 million per year from this country alone. I know, it's unbelievable. Unfucking believable.
I'll tell you what, I'm gonna.
From reading the 1939 in the Cancer Act for 1939 and just scanning over it, especially the principles of the first clauses, I would say it's not directly making it illegal to cure cancers, but it's
to advertise the fact.
Yeah, it's making it pretty much illegal to equivalently share any information in regards to curing it. You know, it's like it's indirectly it is making it illegal to cure cancer. Now, we do have cures for some cancers. Like, I will admit, there is some pharmaceutical medication which fucking knocks the shit out of some cancers if they're detected early. Because medical science, right? You know, you're gonna figure some things out, right? But the fucking universe is vast and expanding, and it's very hard to figure everything out. But it's like Dave's saying there, 80 million per year from this country alone. Let me get those statistics up. How much does cancer research get a year? How much does cancer research get a year? Let's get that up.
We was talking about this, about the heart. Do you remember I was talking about the Heart Foundation? British Heart Foundation. The heart's a muscle, right? How long have we had a heart known about our heart for? Thousands of years. How much more do we need? So why do we need to give money to something to invest into more heart disease? We must know everything by now, surely.
Well, here we go, guys. We've got total income 634 million. Donations 192 million. Legacies 182 million. Trading 104 million. Royalty and grant income 101 million. Events 49 million. Other 6 million.
What's other?
This is primary income from investments and income from the sale of one of our rented properties. 6 million. It's like one of their labs. They sold a lab or something, or it got privatized or something. Donations include regular gifts, major donations, and money raised by local fundraising groups and corporate partners. Legacies: over 6,000 people left a gift to Cancer Research UK in their will. Oh my god. 6,000 people who died, maybe of cancer, maybe not, left a total of 182 million in their will. Oh my fuck.
No.
Give it to me, I'll start the biggest cannabis farm you've seen in your entire fucking life. I'll ship it on fucking big shipping container ships from Jamaica directly to the UK. I'll get the shipping container like armor plated and just drive it straight into the cliffs of Dover. Just ram it into the UK full of cannabis.
With a reggae sound system on top. Playing fucking Bob Marley, mate. That's the one.
It does. It makes me sick as well. I believe that's Kirsty there as well. Tinfoil. What about all the fundraising people do for them? Oh, it's all there on that graph. They grow it here. I know Theresa May's husband grows it.
Yep, he does, yeah. One of the main ones, isn't he?
Yeah.
Main exporters. Oh yeah, but listen, they haven't tested it enough. Do you know what I mean? They don't know what the true effects are yet.
They'll be getting shipped out on an industrial level, mate.
Of course, they know what it's
all the places that are already got an economy there. They're calling it the green rush in America. They're calling it the new gold rush in America and Canada, mate. They've got more demand than supply.
Yeah, but that's what I was trying to say, because the problem having at the moment is they've got state government, haven't they? So they make it legal in the state, and they've got the federal government. And the problem with the people who grow the cannabis is they've got nowhere to put their money, because the banks are federal. So actually what a lot of people are doing is actually re-putting it back into the community, which is really quite positive. So a lot of like the rundown places, in a way, but in a real positive way. But they need to, it's difficult over there.
But they do pay state tax for the business, which then also gets a cut into federal. So they're definitely getting a certain amount of federal money. Let's just search this up again. Let's search more of this on the note of the conversation to get a scope of how big it is. How big
what about
is
Trump's stance on cannabis? Because I think he's against it, isn't he?
I don't think he's gone either or too far down too far down the road. I think he's kind of neutral-ish. Just kind of seeing the market. Fuck me, just so much propaganda on Google. Just it's all shit. I look at the URL before I even look at the fucking title, right? Top one might even be okay, maybe. Cannabis business plan. 64% of the US population now lives in states that have legalized some form of cannabis use and sales. 32 states plus DC have legalized medical cannabis, while 10 states plus DC have legalized recreational. 28% compound annual growth rate, CAGR, from 2016. I was talking about moving to Canada and starting a cannabis farm. Like, no exaggeration, I'd love to grow it. It's obviously illegal here, so we can't do it, but never mind. Cannabis Canada. We've got a statistic here anyway, saying legal marijuana market worth 146.4 billion by 2025, at a CAGR percentage growth of 34.6%. But I think that percentage growth is due to go down as the bigger companies come in and fulfill that demand. We're already starting to see it over in the US. We're already starting to see the industrialization of cannabis growth.
See, I think Spain's got it right. Spain, they haven't done it so that it's going to be for the companies, have it? They've just said you can grow 2 plants in your house. That's it. Which takes all the power away from the gangs or whatever. It takes all the power away from it, and it takes the power away from the corporations who want to take over. Because trust me, the pharmaceutical companies are going to get involved in it. But I mean, you know, the thing is though, with skunk in particular, the strain is a strong strain. As you know, it's made up of 2 compounds. It's made of THC and it's made of CBDs. They've bred the CBD out of it, which is the antipsychotic, to increase the THC output. See, the thing is why I would like to see it decriminalised, to be legalised, purely for that fact. So you have an age limit of 21, so that therefore the brains are allowed to develop in teenage years. So you don't get so much cannabis psychosis around about 26, 27. Okay, because that is a main worry. Okay, they can also then introduce the CBD back into the plants. Therefore, you can go and be able to buy a plant with a higher CBD in it to stop the antipsychotic, to stop the psychotic effects of the so-called THC. You know, I mean, like I said, I've been smoking it for a long time, but the problem with me is I didn't start to an older age when I was 22 with the skunk, and it was super skunk at that time, which again had a bit more CBD in it. You know. And that's the problem. And, you know, the government, what they do is they blame it, all these episodes, mental episodes, skunk, skunk, skunk. But a lot of it, what it does, it actually exacerbates the problem. So these teenagers that were actually going to have started smoking, we're going to have mental health issues in their later years of life anyway. This has just made it happen quicker and sooner. So that's why they need to regulate it. But then the con of that is that it's big pharmaceutical companies are going to get into it, and it's going to be profit, it's going to be taxed and everything else. Yeah. You know, it's a different boundary. And also you've got to look at the fact that you've got the postcode wars, the knife crime, you know, and they put that down to, it's all down to skunk. They need to decriminalise skunk and that lot. But yeah, a bit of it is to do with skunk, but a lot of it is the more stronger drug. It's your cocaine and it's your crack. And that's where the money is, and where the cocaine is. Who takes the cocaine? The middle class and the rich. You know what I mean? So it's a big circle. That's the problem with it all. You know, that's what you got to get your head around as well. It's not as easy as saying just decriminalise it or make it legal. It's how do you do it, and how do you do it to benefit people in a better way? Do you understand? I don't want it. You can see why I'm stuck with legalisation. How do you do it?
You can take pretty much anything in this world, anything positive, and you can use it against people. It's just a way of, you know, yin and yang. It's just a perfect thing to bring up when it comes to cannabis, yin and yang. It opens a lot of people's minds, cannabis, in terms of yin and yang and what that is.
We was talking about that, wasn't we? It's about like the New World Order and the fact that we're brainwashed by the BBC and all this stuff. We get all these subliminal messages, and people who generally smoke, I'm not saying everyone, but a lot of people who generally smoke that I've known throughout the years
tend to
are
be
quite
immune.
wised up. I'm quite more awake because they do think outside the box more. You know, some of the best music in the world's been done. People who smoke or something. You know what I mean? Some of the best poetry, the best everything's been taken by on a substance. You know, it's quite mad. They're now even saying magic mushrooms would be good for depression because it can actually reset the brain. And they're looking into that, and that's something that again comes from the fucking
all the
earth.
psychoactive substances. What you've got to understand about them is that our understanding of the psychology of the human brain, the chemistry of the human brain, you know, happiness, dopamine, and lack of, therefore, causing depression and things like that, and how, you know, exercise can help with depression and things like that. I went through my own mental breakdown with anxiety, and, you know, it was contributing factors to do with, and cannabis was involved in it, but it wasn't cannabis that caused it. It was the fact that I had my own issues going on, and that cannabis suppressed these issues and made it me out of touch of what was really going on. And at one point I whited, as I'm sure a lot of long-term smokers have at some point, and a lot of these problems that had kind of been buried in the cradle, if you will, of cannabis, and how it helped me numb these problems and help me relax, kind of cascaded down, and was a bit too much for me. And I stopped smoking after that. That's kind of my own downfall of it. So understanding that your brain moves in directions to and fro, almost like waves, almost like a river. And it's like, you know, you can too much of anything's bad for you, right? We can all agree on that. It's a fucking age-old saying, too much of anything's bad for you. And
it's moderation, isn't it? Moderation is the key word, I think.
Yeah. Understanding that some drugs can make you happy, some drugs can relax you, some drugs make you think, some drugs make you not think. Mixing that chemistry, mixing that understanding of how that affects the brain, and applying that to something, on a psychological level in a healing way, could definitely attribute cures, remedies, and health benefits to psychological health. We've got to first get a chance to understand these drugs, though. We don't have that opportunity when they're illegal. We don't have the opportunity to fully investigate and understand them. Yet we have millions of people, if not over 1 billion people on the planet, who at some point taken a recreational illegal drug at some point in their life. So we know that there's drugs out there on the planet, from, you know, the downright dirty heroin to the downright innocent DMT, you know, cannabis, obviously the big one. And they can all be corrupted in too much of a pure form. They can all be overused. They can all be abused. And it's those elements of all these drugs that's been focused on, the drug abuse. But it's the same concept of understanding when it comes to guns don't kill people, people do. And banning guns because, you know, guns are dangerous. It's not the gun that's dangerous, it's the people that pick them up that make it dangerous. And it's the same with drugs. There's a certain length of responsibility that is taken away from us, almost like we're children and we're unaware of what's going on. And that puts people in boxes, and it takes away their ability to think and rationalize these problems on their own and understand it. I mean, we all had to go through that with alcohol. I mean, some of us at a young age here in Britain, it's completely legal to drink with parents with a meal in a pub, or, you know, there's no legal drinking age here in the UK if it's in closed premises under adult supervision. And I spewed up. I learnt my threshold for drinking. You know, I was like, well, help me, that's too much drink, right? And you learn your limits. We all know that with drinking. In fact, every country in the world probably understand that saying universally. Know your limits when it comes to drinking. So people know their limits. But there's still alcoholics. There's still violent drunks that go home and beat their wife. And even women that go home and fucking beat their husband, in the sense of equality. Or are venomous, or are equally as destructive emotionally. It goes both ways. And if you don't understand the evil that you're dealing with, if you don't get to grips with the negatives and things, then it's very easy for those negatives to rule you and affect you, and very hard to combat them. It's like if you're fighting in a war against an army, having no strategic information on what you're fighting and understanding it and be able to put yourself in their shoes, you're at a strategic loss. You have to accept the negative sides of everything, you know, and by not doing so and just saying, that's illegal, we don't research it, you don't take it, when people are going to take it anyway, is ignorant, you know, and they're clearly protecting something else, and we've already talked about it and we can see what it is. But it's just the what I'm trying to tap into here when I'm talking about this, I'm trying to tap into the fundamentals of understanding when there's alarm bells when it comes to the institutionalized control over us, you know, with the government and regulation, the laws, everything that's been written into power by corrupt individuals for their own self-gain. All of these systems, it's not just about understanding them individually if you want to get a bigger picture. As the saying goes, seeing the forest from the trees. It's very easy to identify each, well, this is cannabis and this is a problem with cannabis. This is banks and this is the problem with central banking. This is politicians and this is the problem with, like, the deep state and the cabal. When you start to see that these vast amounts of problems, it can be very hard to process and digest, even for me, and I'm even sure for Chris. You know, there's a vast amount of things going on. So what you have to learn to do and understand is what characteristics and what patterns and shapes in terms of the layout of what you're faced with from the state and certain systems in place, what to identify as what you know is wrong or right. And I know that sounds basic, right? But for years and years, a majority of us thought that BBC was fair and unbiased news, right? For a long time, we couldn't distinguish that as being bullshit. Okay?
I used to watch Jim Will Fix It. Fucking hell.
There you go. So it's like, it's not about being able to identify things individually and delve into them, right? Because we're all here for a short amount of time. We're all thinking about the most important things, which is like, you know, soul searching, learning who you are, making the world a better place, being loving, spending time with family, the greater good, you know, reducing suffering across the board, all these things. But the only way you can have the energy left to do that is if you figure out a way to begin to see the identification of these systems in place across the board, and not have to like see a problem with cannabis and have to go so deep into it. You know, you need to be able to add the shit out of this, or as a lot of people like to say, red pill the shit out of it. Okay, so ask simple questions. It's like, for instance, when we're digging for evidence, like we've done on the previous podcast, when we've been bringing evidence up for certain cases or arguments or things that we've been talking about. I won't just look through the sources on Google. I'll look at the URL and who it's provided by. If you really want to validate it, you can look who funds them. Chris is always saying that. Who funds them, and then who funds the people that funds them, right? And don't go any further than that, though, right? Try and get a full spherical view over it. Once you gain an understanding of the roots of what you're dealing with, the roots and the base of what it is you're looking at, there's no point going deeper into it, because the moment that you know it's bullshit, the moment that you know it's corrupt, that it's wrong, it's immoral, and it's of negative impact on the civilization that us good guys are trying to build, move on. Put a big cross on it in your head. That's fucking wrong. Okay? Always be willing to debate people on it. Yeah? Always be willing to be wrong. Always keep an open mind. Yeah? We are all wrong about things on a daily fucking basis, right? We used to stone witches and drown people for being witches X amount of years ago, right? We used to believe in the craziest shit, and we still have small packs of people that believe it's acceptable to throw gays off the top of buildings, and it happens on a daily basis. It still happens in the world. So there's people that believe crazy things, and they have to go on their own personal journey of discovery. So it's not always as simple as, you know, looking into all the facts and statistics and figures of cannabis legalization or whatever. What do we know about cannabis, right? This is like, I'll use this as a metaphorical template for looking at everything else, when it, you know, whether it's banking, politics, you know, war, whatever it is, or religion, anything. So what do we know about cannabis? What are the basics? It's a drug. Okay, so it goes in the category of other drugs, any other drug. Pharmaceuticals, other recreational drugs, it's in the category of drugs. What do we have in relation to that? We've got war on drugs. So what's the war on drugs? What does it categorize? Cannabis is part of that. So why do we have the war on drugs? The negative effects and, you know, the so-called destruction, you know, and the fueling of gangs and blah, 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 the war on drugs. Is the war on drugs a good thing? Has it been a success? What have the effects been? It's been negative. The war on drugs has been negative. It's been pretty much in deficit. It's fucked. The war on drugs is a failure of mass proportion, and it has ruined a lot of people's lives across the board, including people that have been arrested for cannabis charges that are absolutely spent life imprisonment in the same country that it's becoming legalized, sometimes in the same state that it's being legalized. So, you know, at that point, so I've just done a bit of digging there just into one side of it, and at that point I'm like, okay, there's something wrong there. I don't need to dig any deeper. Now, if you're passionate about cannabis, go crazy, like, because you have that energy to pursue that specific truth. Yeah, but not everybody is going to have the same soul interests in specific topics. Like, I love cannabis. I have experience with it. I understand it very well. I consider myself a connoisseur of it to a certain degree. A lot of experience with it in all fields, and I love it, but I don't smoke it, so I don't get too involved in it. But I don't have any negative juju towards it. When it comes, so I invest what things, like, I'm interested in the education system because right now it applies to me. I've got kids that are in school, so I do that bit of extra digging into the education system and what happens, you know, with the board of governors, how it's all linked into civil service and how, you know, it goes full circle, and try and paint a bigger picture with that. But it's very easy to go down the rabbit hole with your psyche when it comes to the multiplex of problems that we have in the planet, right? This is why we have to come together as a hive mind. Right, and the good people that want good, right, like with this Freeman movement, right, you have to come together as a hive mind and work these problems out together, because the same way that we are to combat and deal with these issues are the same way they've been created. It isn't one man which has scaled and created the intricate web of corruption on this planet. This has been the cooperation and the collaboration and collusion of multiple powerful individuals in places of power across the world and across different times in history. And in order to combat that, we need to combat that in the same way it was built. You can't, you know, I feel like I've said too much already, but you get what I'm saying. So it's good to watch documentaries, things that are already summed up, but always be skeptical, always keep an open mind, never close your mind off to anyone's idea, even if it's a Remainer that's debating you in the street or on Facebook in the comments. Don't get aggressive with them. They are a fellow brother and sister if they're on this land. And they believe they're fighting for a good cause just like you. And if they believe something that isn't true, and they've been convinced of something evil, they are a victim. Not an enemy, they are a victim. And they need help. They don't need attacking and victimizing, because it's natural for human beings to do what? Be defensive, alright? And they'll just shut you off. We've all had that same thing with your parents, you know. When you were younger, can I go and sleep over, or can I go out, or whatever? And they say no. It starts off at that, right? But in your head, you've got an idea of why you think it's okay, and you want to sleep over, or you should be allowed out, and you think it's unfair because your parents. And you push that on your parents. They get more defensive. They get more pushy with you. So we learn this from a young level, that, you know, the psychological structure of human beings and how we communicate. So it's not solving anything by, you know, pew pew pew, shooting somebody down and you know, throwing a load of, you know, facts, figures and statistics at someone. It's best to listen to what somebody said. Try and get them to divulge as much information as possible in terms of what's led them to that point. Because you have to take people's structures down, right? Make them feel safe, make them feel whole, make them feel like they're a good person, because we're talking about people that voted Remain and think the EU is a great thing, that also have children and kids that think they're doing the right thing. You have to be delicate with it. You have to take that down to... You don't want to destroy people, right? As soon as you bring that threat to the table, which basically takes away any form of rationality in their own head, any form of stability in their own soul, right? And when they wake up in the morning and they've become a good person through their eyes, right? You can't just destroy that, because that's somebody's liberty. That's somebody's freedom of expression and thought. And they may try and take that away from you, but two wrongs don't make a right. I don't mean to lower it to that, but two wrongs don't make a right. It's like what I'm saying with the Brexit Party. I should probably bring that up, because it's a really big thing. We're having this dilemma right now within these sects of people. Us guys, with people that I'm seeing on Facebook. They're even part of the Freeman group on Facebook, and multiple people in the comments that are saying they're going to vote Brexit Party. And it is very distressing, because they've come so far, right? But it goes to show that we can all be a victim. They can always tap in. We're not all invincible to corruption or manipulation. Everybody can be manipulated. Everybody can be manipulated, because we all feel pain. Well, the majority of us, exception to the rule. Obviously, mad diseases that stop people feeling pain. I mean, they discovered that recently. Chris was mentioning it. Somebody, I won't go off topic too much. Chris was mentioned that there's someone that doesn't feel pain or something, and they was going to use it. You know, the military capability of that with soldiers would have been crazy. You got yourself muted, mate.
I'll be muted. Oh. Yeah, it was on this morning, or something, when I was watching it this morning, but it was also on previous programmes to that, which is why I mentioned it before. But bloody hell, think of the bloody implications of that. Genetics. Yeah. So she's got a genetic, something missing in genetics where she does not feel pain.
Yeah, so let me just finish this point really quick, right? So we're all human is the point, with an exception to the rule. There's always an exception to the rule. We're all human, we all feel pain. So we can all be manipulated in some way. It doesn't matter where you are on the political spectrum, where you've been born, what your intelligence is, what your educational background is, what your financial background is, what your heritage is, where you come from, the colour of your skin, your religious beliefs. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. All that matters, right, is that your heart and soul is in the right place, and you mean good on this planet, right? And you could even say the same about some Muslims, many Muslims, that want the world to be a better place. That's their inhibition. They don't want the earth to be worse. They still believe in a paradise and a hell, right? Now, it might be worlds apart from your view in terms of, like, fuck me, you know, how could you believe in fucking GFM and thighying and all that kind of stuff? I believe some police officers can't feel pain, no empathy. They're victims. They're victims. I've seen it with people with my own eyes. Bad things happen to them, and they lose a part of their soul. But it's not their fault. It's not their fault. I mean, what background do these police officers come from? Because they was born a child one day. One day they was born a child. They was born a baby. Right? Wherever they was born, whatever they was told growing up, they was born a child, and they believe what they believe. Even Theresa May. All of them. They was all born children. We was all of us. Even we speak of these cabal like they're fucking a different species because they are worlds apart from us, right? But they was all born a child. It doesn't matter. They've obviously been broken down in some kind of principle, right? Their emotions and and they're fucked, right? But I'm a big believer that if there is some kind of next dimension, there is some kind of forward movement of the spirit, like the soul goes somewhere. Any religion, I'm skeptical. I always am about everything because that's the way you should be. But if there is, I believe balance is a lot. And if you are 51% good and 49% conniving and evil and lying and malicious, then you're a good person. Because we all have what is famously known as the human condition. I have fucking things in my past which, I express to my partner. My partner knows I've gone through things in my past and I've made horrible mistakes that... Oh shit, that dog's barking. Just turn desktop down a second. I've had to bond with my partner in terms of vulnerability, and she has the same. And I'm sure all you guys have made fuck-ups that are just it's like an embodiment of evil. Like, why the fuck did I do that, right? But you're not bad people. Yeah, but we all carry a certain extent of baggage. We call it baggage. We call it trauma. We call it problems, right? But we're all born into this world innocent. Every single one of us. And you've always got to remember that when you're speaking to somebody that is destructive or is a threat to you in some way, right? Look at Gandhi. Gandhi's a fucking... look at people like Gandhi. Look at people like Bob Marley. Just a lot of political figures. JFK, Winston Churchill, despite his ties and all the opinions linked to him and, him being a negative individual, his spirit and his soul and how it represented the country, people connected to it. The good in so many people that have represented that light in humans for a very long time. And you've just got to stand by that and understand, was those people fulfilled? Was they happy? And they more than likely was. And you can be like that as well. I strive to be like that. And now, I can't help it when I see something on my phone pop up on YouTube and it's, I don't know, it's Piers Morgan talking to somebody that says a mother can be a father and a father can be a mother. It triggers me, yeah, I'll get pissed off. I'm like, fuck me, you're trying to literally change vocabulary, you're off your head. That does annoy me when people try and bend reality, right, and they impose that on people. I saw something, I don't know if you guys know of this guy, he's called Jordan Peterson. He's a great guy, he's a psychologist. He's helped me through some tough times. He's helped me understand the human condition, the psychology of the human mind in aspects that I would have never thought of. Helped me through depression, understanding people, the negatives in the world and also the positives, and ways to move forward and accept traumas and negatives in your life. And Jordan Peterson, if you're not aware of him, you should go and watch some of his videos. He sums things up amazingly. He's one of those that just says it how it is. Doesn't give a fuck about what you think and how you feel. He just says it how it is. He's one of them. Love him to bits. Now, I was watching a video of him this morning, and honestly, I'll share this. I mean, beard and man and blah blah blah. But I'll share this. I'll share this now. I cried this morning in bed. My missus will vouch. I cried at this video that I saw this morning. And it was Jordan Peterson on stage at one of his conventions or whatever at a university. And there's a big crowd of people or whatever, and he's talking about whatever society and political correctness, those general subjects he talks about from a psychological standpoint, and he really sums it up from a studied scientific level. And a guy came on stage. It really makes me emotional just talking about it. A guy came on stage. I'll just play the video and you guys will understand exactly what I mean. I'm going to get this video up. It really is a heartfelt video. It makes you realise that people just really want to know themselves, and they want to combat their problems. People want to be a good person.
I finish work at about 1, so I'll get checked into 1:30.
Okay, so I've got the video up here. I'm just going to enlarge it. Going to switch over. So this video made me cry because it was like, fuck me. This was like, because I feel like I know Jordan Peterson and I've watched him so much. He doesn't fucking lie, right? It's his profession. He's an amazing psychologist, and he spreads so much understanding into the human condition and what goes on. So he's here. Look at this crowd of people here at this university. So I'm just going to play this and see what happened.
The reason that I was speaking forcefully, let's say, or perhaps even somewhat angrily by the end, was because not only was the white noise generator.
My name is David Lindbauschu. I'm unwell. I need help. I need help. I just wanted to meet you. I'm unwell. I called my...
I hope that you
up there.
I want to find the help that you need.
Oh my God. I want to know him better.
It was those words, I want to know him better. You want to know Jordan Peterson better because Jordan Peterson is so... He's so content because he's got a full spherical view. He's studied it all his life, and he's not upset. He's not unhappy. He's I'll just play the rest of it here. In the extended version, somebody films on a video. They do a prayer for him. The entire stadium, because it's America, and I'm not Christian, but I would pray for that guy. I would bow my head with everybody in that stadium and pray for that guy. But what a fucking... I was there saying his name. I can't remember his name, but I was like talking to him. You know, I was so fucking emotionally attached to that guy when he came on stage because I just... all these problems. It's like. We deal with it on a day-to-day basis. We have those layers that help us deal with these problems and rationalize them and overcome them. Like, fuck me, that's feminism gone a bit crazy. Oh, political correctness gone crazy, you know, and we just roll over it. But not everybody can deal with that. And the people that are struggling from these societal issues, they're victims. They are huge victims. The increase in anxiety and mental health issues with the LGBT community is fucking staggering. The amount of people that commit suicide, deal with horrific mental health problems on a day-to-day basis because they feel trapped in the wrong sex. They feel trapped in the wrong body. That's horrible to fucking think that you'd live with that. And these people... Fuck. It's fucked. It's so fucked. It's so fucked. What? Chris, you okay? You not moved? He's alright.
Yeah, I'm alright. I'm just getting some biscuits.
I
was just listening. Sorry, guys. I was just listening and the kids were walking in and out, so I put myself on mute because it gets noisy.
Cool beans, cool beans. Yeah, he's there. He's there. What I was saying anyway is that there's nothing, there's no greater gift than to feel loved in your own body. Like the saying goes, you've got to love yourself before you can love anybody else. And if people are that fucking hurt in some way, that distraught in some way, whether they believe that they're a woman in a man's body or they love men instead of women, you know, the whole LGBTQ sphere of these issues, it's fucking, and that would be linked to these trauma. It's sad. It's fucking sad. It breaks my heart. It honestly breaks.
Do you think that the fact that I can't remember what year it was, but it used to be treated as a mental health issue, didn't it?
Gender dysphoria.
And they stopped doing that, didn't they? Do you think the suicide rate has gone up perhaps because of that reason?
The suicide. I think the suicide rate is linked to the suicide rate is linked to this, and this simply. And Jordan Peterson speaks about this, right?
Yeah.
If you are born a man biologically, right, and you have a penis, okay, You have a phallus. You don't have boobs. You don't have estrogen. You're not a woman. You have testosterone, right? But like mentally, spiritually, whatever you want to call it, you feel like you're a woman and you should be a woman, right? That's not that you're fucking. Do I have to paint a picture, right? That's not fucking. You know, that's not in line with how you've been born. That's a fucking challenge. That's fucking huge, right? I think a lot of people do in the LGBT community fucking take the piss and they play it off for attention, right? Because they, you know, the whole Me Too. But I think some people genuinely do suffer, and they should be accepted. These people should be fucking accepted. If you want to do this or do that, LGBTQ, whatever the fuck it is, you want to identify as a military attack chopper, I don't care. You want to identify as a pig or a pony, I don't fucking care. Where's that thought come from, though? What thought? The thought of what? What thought? Let the comment come through. There's a bit of a delay to YouTube and shit because it goes through Restream, then it goes up to Facebook. Born a man, but a woman.
There's quite a delay.
Born a man, but a woman.
There's quite a delay on mine.
No, I'm talking about. Well, I brought up the Jordan Peterson, right? I was talking about the Jordan Peterson. I played the video with a guy that was obviously having problems, and he come onto the stage, and I was saying how I felt emotionally. I could emotionally relate to that because Jordan Peterson played a massive part in me understanding the psyche of myself and humans and the human condition and wrapping my head around that. He was a very straight-cut guy. It wasn't emotional. It was all about getting to the point, and I think a lot of people need that. You know, they need, you know, the classic slap round the face, metaphorically or physically, right? To just fucking, you know, this is how it is. You can't fucking change it. And that's very much what Jordan Peterson is an embodiment of. And obviously, I played the video of the guy crying and coming on stage and saying he needed help. And I really felt for that this morning. And I was talking about the links of how Jordan Peterson predominantly talks about the faults in society, the fault lines, you know, the political correctness. He just put middle finger up on the stream.
Who's that, my son?
Yeah.
Oh, go away, you. He's a sod.
So he specialises in the political correctness and things like that. The LGBT community. He talks about society. Go watch him. So basically, that's when I got into people that coming out, right, and suffer from that. Born a man, but feel like they're a woman, believe they're a woman. Later on in life, or really, the whole debate is you're born gay or blah, 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 you're not. I don't care about any of that. It's fucking trivialities. I don't fucking care. All that matters is you get to fucking... Someone gets to 16 and says, right, I want to be a woman. I want to chop my penis off. I want to cut my penis off. I want to go through a sexual transition. And it's like, okay, whatever, right? What did that? But at the end of the day, when you look at it black and white, that's how that person's feeling, right? That's fucking not nice. That's not fucking nice.
Yeah, but can I just ask you a question? Can I ask you a question, right? Oh, is my thing on? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
anyway,
okay.
listen. Yeah, the question is this, right? Right, I'm a man, right? Now I can't get into my little head what part of me would say that I was a woman. How would that? How does
me
it?
neither, right?
How does that matter to transgender? What, do they get a voice in their head? Like I hear like a man's voice in my head. Do they hear a female voice in their head? Do they feel like when they touch their chest, they should be boobs there? I don't understand.
I don't. Yeah, right. I completely.
Transgender and find that actually out. What is it?
Yeah. So fucking. I've looked a lot into it because it is a very fucking predominant topic, rising in terms of the roaring fires of social media. So I've had to look into it a lot on both sides, and I've had to be open-minded. I've been very open-minded about everything, and I've just come to the. I completely agree with everything that Chris has said there in terms of the question of what. You know what? Because I don't understand. And where my empathy for that comes from is the fact that something has got trigger that or something when born. Yeah, something has led them to feel that way, right? And I went over this on one of the previous streams about, you know, a kid goes into school, he doesn't have as much testosterone as the boys, and he doesn't fit in that well, and then he sways more towards the female characteristics, and that kind of thing is perpetuated and propelled into something of normality, which allows kids who are developing to fall more into that area of acceptance of that's okay, right? But the problem here is You have to love yourself before you love anybody else. And when you're born with a penis, that penis is you. You're given balls and a penis full of sperm.
So what you're saying really is, it's sorry to interrupt, it's like a chemical imbalance, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I'm saying that that's the only scientific one that I've looked at. I do believe that people.
A chemical. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, what I was saying is that, like, part of everything I've looked into, the whole spectrum of the LGBT, right? Because, you know, it goes fucking deep, and there's like been a letter added every single fucking year, right? For inclusion. Now, the chemical imbalance is definitely one that can be like. Like I've just explained there, you can draw it out, yeah, black and white. That makes fucking sense. Yeah, people get bullied or whatever. You have less testosterone, so you don't fulfill the natural growing characteristics in a social environment where the majority do. It makes it a lot easier then, right, for that person who doesn't fit in, who then, well, you exhibit it. I've had fucking pubic hair on my face from a very young age, you know what I mean? Or the boys that get bigger will have really hairy legs and you get changed in PE. You could see, if you was to go back, some boys develop later ages than others, right? Or earlier ages than others. And so it's that kind of characteristic, which is natural, and we're all going to develop at whatever age. I mean, I remember kids in my school, you get the idea, we all develop at different stages, right? But it's the fact that if LGBT is being pushed on kids that haven't even hit that kind of, like, level of chemical development, it's basically, you know, you're not even sexually orientated on a chemical basis fully, right? Till, you know, you start actually producing this chemical to its full level. So when people are exposed to that narrative, one way or the other, at an early stage, it can definitely create these pockets of these niches of it's almost like a vessel of growth for something that's not right in a way.
Which, yeah, but so what I'm saying is, if it's a chemical imbalance, then it's nothing to do with genetics or gender. It's not a gender. Gender is genetics, is related, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they've sort of kind of twisted it round, then, haven't they? Perhaps I don't know.
I'm not.
To suit a thing.
There's the scientific and the psychological issues of it, which is like more my focus in terms of what is it black and white? How does it affect people? What are the negatives and positives? That's my concentration, right? You know, then there's also the politics on top of it, of like rights and sharing toilets and pronouns and all that. Fuck off! I don't care. You know, honestly, I do not care. If I respect someone and they say, "Look, I'd appreciate if you do not call me a she, you call me a he." Okay. If I respect them, and I'll do that, whatever. But what I don't appreciate is somebody in the street who's dressed like a woman, right? Who can then somehow impose that fucking structure onto me, right? And dibble and dice between the social and civilized structure that we've had for thousands of years. That is playing with fucking fire. That will be the downfall of our civilization. Playing with the structure that we have very delicately and naturally built over the last... Oh, God, I think Chris's camera turned off. Yeah, fuck me, I don't know. Playing with that structure is bad. It's a bad idea. It's a bad fucking idea. There's only negative to come from that. Nothing positive. You know, acceptance is great. Diversity is great. People feeling comfortable in their own body is great, right? And trying to help people that are suffering in any way at all, right, is great. But imposing the suffering of yourself on others is not. That's not okay.
I totally agree. I mean, it's our freedom, isn't it, to be whoever or whatever we want, isn't it?
Tinfoil's made a great point. I nearly brought it up, I left it, and I'm like, but someone's commented on it, so I'll bring it up, right? How would you feel if you pulled a woman, turned out to be a man? I'd be fucking disgusted. I'd take them to court. I'd take them to court for sexual harassment. I'd take them to court for fucking everything that I could. I'd be distressed. I'd be traumatized. And I don't even say that in a joking way. I would. I fucking would. I'm straight. I'm fucking straight. Yeah, and if I was in a club and I was intoxicated and somebody had boob enhancements and blah 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 and they chopped it all and I woke up in the morning and it was really a man, I'd be fuming. That's what I mean about imposing the suffering of yourself on others. You can't fucking do that. I don't care what anybody says, because being in a body that you don't feel comfortable in is suffering. That's suffering, right? That's suffering. I can get on board with let's help that person by any means possible. You want to fucking be called this, whatever. You want to do this, whatever. You want to be with this person, whatever. But then it goes into like, you want to have... I don't even want to talk about some fucking controversial things, mate, because it's like, I probably know people that are... I'm friends with people that are gay. I've got friends that are gay and lesbian and bi and probably whatever else. Do you know what I mean? They don't bother me, okay? But the problem is you're in, like I say, fuck me, I could go on about this all night. The problem is that they want to say that, but it's like giving someone an inch and then them taking a mile. That's what's happening, okay? And the legislation, you know, the hate speech and the fucking equal rights laws, it's all been set up to fucking facilitate and grow that into this fucking horrible monster of a disease that we have in our society.
Do you think it's all part of the narrative to push away our gender? Do you think to get rid of gender, full stop, so we all become the same?
There's positives of it when it comes to NWO, New World Order. There's positives when it comes to controlling us and using us as an asset. It's like you say, what you're worth on the stock market with your birth certificate. Yeah. If there's no males and females, it's a lot easier to just fucking put us in one bunch and just direct us forward. Or maybe it's just part of a fucking social cataclysm, like a socially engineered self-destruction of civilization itself in order to fucking call the numbers or weaken us. Together we are strong. Divided we are weak. That's the fucking point. One woman and one man is very fucking strong. Very fucking strong. Look at the studies of bench pressing. Now you can say that you can bench press a percentage more if you're a straight male, obviously, and you've got a female sat on you, or you're looking at a female while you're doing it because of the boost in testosterone. A man and a woman in their natural form are strong. Divide that.
Do you know what? I'm taking a bird with me every time I go down the gym now then. She can sit at the end of my bench, I'm telling you.
Honestly, you'll be fucking shocked. I've fucking tried myself, mate. It's true. It's true. Go and look at the studies. I'm not going to pull it up because I don't want to go too deep into all of this. I'll just, you know, generally talking about it. We always go over the 9 o'clock, but I don't mind. I love just talking about any of this. You tend to build up your momentum, don't you?
Train better when you smoke as well. Believe it or not. That's been proven.
You very rarely see transgender years ago. Now it's becoming normal.
That's what I mean. It's kind of being pushed. It's a narrative that's being pushed.
Right. Again, I don't care. I don't care. All that's do what you want. Fuck me. Same with like the stonings and all the shit that was going over in the Middle East. It was its own fucking thing. They're bringing it over here. It's a problem, right? They want to bring old age fucking norms to this country, right? Like GFM, how many prosecutions has there been for GFM, but how much does it happen? It's being accepted. It's being accepted, and I don't want to bring up things that TR, you know who, TR, I don't want to say his name on the stream. I fucking respect him, I support him, but you know what I'm talking about, TR, who's been censored across the fucking platform. The points that he brings up, I don't really want to talk about it, but it goes without saying, right? That shit is fucking not on. It's not fucking on, and it's happening across the board. And the same people that are fighting for the rights of them, the people that they're defending and fighting for are the same people that would throw them off the fucking roof of a mosque. What the fuck? I mean, you're talking about being lost down the rabbit hole in terms of political correctness. Like, going that far into disillusion, going that far into like off the path of any form of logic, right? That you support something that, come on, fuck me, pushing British values and what the country is. Yeah, it's all about nuclear family. It's all about, you know, losing values. I mean, they talk
for children.
Yeah, the irony of all of this is something very intriguing. And it's a point that stands out a lot. And Jordan Peterson made this point as well, along with Ben Shapiro. And it was that there's this massive support, right, for individuality, right, for diversity, and, you know, all of that shit. But the problem is here, what am I? I'm diverse in my views, but they're shutting people down with diverse views that oppose theirs. That's not fucking supporting diversity. What the fuck? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. If you support diversity in people's different views and blah blah blah, you support people where over 50% of them, of the demographic, right, support Sharia law. Great, fine, okay, what the fuck ever, right? Not me. I don't involve me, right? You support them. Those same people, right, within Sharia law believe you should be killed for what you believe in, right? But because I'm patriotic, far less destructive than that, far less destructive than Sharia law in terms of my beliefs and how my beliefs do not affect them, right? But then they're supporting, it's clearly fucking they're clearly being manipulated. Oh, you can support this, but not this. It's like they're literally fucking androids. They're robots. People have become robots. Like, quite literally become robots. Because they contradict themselves in everything that they say. I mean, fuck me. Let's get a video up of this fucking shit. Just to show you. Fucking anti-Trump supporters. There's just an epitome of them. It's unbelievable. Fox News. Oh, God. I don't want to get copyright striked, mind you. That's the problem. You're muted, by the way, if you're talking there, mate.
Oh, shit. It's because the kids keep coming in and out. Oh, fucking hell.
Go on.
No, just talking, you were talking about cannabis earlier. I've just found something about Paul Kenwood. He's the MD of a British sugar company and he grows 45 acres of it, right? And then you've got Victoria Atkins, MP, UK drugs minister, opposed to cannabis law reform. Right, so listen to this. Government corruption and hypocrisy, right? Sativex, you can check this, medical cannabis is sold at almost 5 times the price of black market cannabis and almost 20 times the price of Dutch medical cannabis, which is called Bedrocan, by a corporation with a government monopoly to grow it, whose MD is married to the Tory drugs minister, ripping off the sick. Check it all out, mate. See, it just shows you, doesn't it? This is the thing. This is what's going on. I bet she wants to stay in the EU.
You can send me that article if you want. I'll pull it up.
Yeah, have a look.
I'm just going to put this video on really quick. I'm going to turn you down, Chris, while I play it.
Yeah.
So left-wing agitators are trying to damage Donald Trump's campaign by protesting outside of his political rallies. So today, we sent David Webb to Wisconsin to ask the demonstrators, what are you so upset about? Watch this.
It's hilarious.
Are you protesting Donald Trump?
Yes.
What's the policy that you object to?
All of it.
Just like the things he says about women and like the racism.
Like what?
Too many. Yeah, he just.
Let me just stop this video and just like put a preface here before I go and even play this video, right? Just unmute Chris if you want to say anything on this. What the fuck, right? Like, how do people get to that point? It's like if somebody came up to me in London and was like, you know, on the 29th, like, why are you here? Bish bash bosh, thank you, ma'am. You know, fuck me. Like, in fact, look at all the fucking interviews. People had plenty to say. Oh my fucking god. Why, the opposition, they can't even put their finger on what they're talking about. You see how I can go deep into all these things that I have opinions on. I don't have opinions on things that I don't know about. You don't know nothing, don't say nothing. That's my rule. You don't know nothing, don't fucking say nothing. And especially don't fucking stand up, right, for someone, or for something, or for a cause, or against a cause, if you can't even explain what it is, what the negatives are. And there's fucking so much of this footage. There's so much of this footage. Try and find me a fucking a claim, a fucking interviewed claim, or fucking dislike towards Donald Trump that's legitimate, apart from the grab her by the pussy, which is hilarious, by the way.
Does not support other races.
He's got too much money.
He has to be respectful to everyone, because we don't want that kind of people leader for our nation. I think that he is entirely un-American.
Barely speaking a word of fucking American. I'm not racist, I'm not discriminatory, I'm not a bigot, but she fucking got the strongest non-American accent you can fucking imagine.
Un-American in the way that he goes about his politics. He's very
Un-American. He's un-American how he goes about his politics. Jesus Christ, bitch, you need to read the Constitution, right? You need to understand that he has kept every single fucking promise and hasn't gone against a single one of them since he's been in office. Fucking every president before him, with an exclusion, obviously, an exception to the rule with a few of them, has been anti-Constitution. Lying, can even. What does she think American is? What kind of politician does she want in power? Does she want someone that's going to lie to her? Is that what she wants? Why the fuck would you say that? Let's rewind and play that again. Really, is she real?
people leader for our nation. I think that he is entirely un-American in the way that he goes about his politics.
He's totally. What the fuck is wrong with that bitch?
He's very homophobic and he's racist, and he's just fear-mongering.
Are you working with a group?
Homophobic and racist. Where? What the fuck is... What are they talking about?
You've got a UAW sign right there.
Donald Trump has accused me of whatever. No, I do not. Yes, I am union. Union is standing.
With the way things are, I think Trump is gaining a lot of ground because he's
I support Bernie Sanders 120%.
Wow. Here with reaction, Fox News contributors David Webb and Doug Schoen. Even you admit they're dumb, right?
Well, they certainly aren't coherent, Sean.
Yes.
Fuck me. See, that's where they make a mistake. These people are victims, right? They're not dumb, they're just victims. Fuck me. But yeah, unbelievable to fucking watch that. Just when TR went after Remainers why they want to stay in the EU. Yeah, that video is fucking hilarious. Not in another country though, they should live under our law. Yep, totally agree. I'll just put Tommy speaks to Brexit, it'll come up, I'm sure it will. See how it's across the board though? Not just Trump, but with this as well.
I just want to find one person who knows who the leader of the European Union is, one person who knows how much money we pay in a year. That's all we're looking for. Someone. At the minute we found two people who have no idea why they're here. Looking for answers as to these people have taken, obviously look at the European Union flags, they've taken their time out today to come and protest. So I want to see what their solution is. Who's the president of the European Union?
Not sure.
Do you know who the leader of the European Union is?
Do I know who the leader of the European Union is?
Yeah. Do you know who the president of the European Union is?
Why is that your response? To fucking ask the question? That's the fucking stupidest thing ever. When you ask somebody a question, they just repeat the question to you to buy time because they clearly don't know the fuck you're talking about.
Yes.
Do I know who the leader of the European Union is?
Yeah. Do you know who the president of the European Union is?
No.
No. Who's the current leader of the European Union?
It is... Martin Shaw.
Okay. No, it's not. Did you? Oh, you. So you want to stay in the EU?
I don't really understand what it's all about, really, but.
Look at you. Fascist. Mind if I ask you? Are you shouting at me?
I'm trying to do whatever the fuck I want.
No, I'm not having a go. I'm just asking.
We're not going to engage with you.
You're not going to engage? No, you just think engaging me. She's shouting at me. Do you mind if I ask you questions then?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're on the Remain side. Yes. Are you against democracy?
No, I'm for democracy.
So you're for leaving the European Union?
No.
You're not, but you okay.
You're for democracy? What the fuck? Are you for democracy? Yes, you're for leaving it? No. What the fuck is wrong with people?
Yes. Are you against democracy?
No, I'm for democracy.
So you're for leaving the European Union?
No.
You're not, but you okay. Confused.
Who are you from?
Oh, can I ask you? Are you against democracy?
I'm totally not against democracy.
So you're for leaving Europe.
So
you're for leaving.
No.
But
That's an ignorant thing to say.
No. What's ignorant?
No, listen.
Okay.
Well, no, you're wasting my time.
No.
Democracy is this. Democracy is saying what you think. I am.
No, democracy is protesting, but when you say it's an ignorant thing to say, you're standing here protesting for the European Union. You don't even know who the leader of the European Union is.
I don't need to know.
How much does it cost for it in a year?
I'm here as part. Okay. Now, listen. What you're finding is, right, you got no idea what we're going to lose by coming out of it.
You've got no idea who leads it or how much it costs us already.
I've got,
don't know how much it fucking costs the country. You don't even know who's in charge of it, and just fucking whatever, go right ahead. Fucking Hitler could be running it, or fucking Jimmy Savile's spirit from the grave could be fucking. He doesn't have any fucking clue whatsoever who runs it. It could be run by Kim Jong-un of North Korea, and he's just fucking like, we're gonna lose all this. He knows all the fucking negatives that he's been sold, every fucking day by the BBC, more than likely. But he doesn't know any of the fucking, positives to leaving the EU, because none of it's fucking shared, and nor are the actual negatives of being in the EU. He doesn't know any of it. And it's like, here's the thing, right? I can go both sides, and it's like I won't make that argument against him and say, oh well, I'm exactly the same and it's all bad being in the EU. There's so many positives of being in the EU, in terms of like freedom to travel, in terms of like the free travel all over and go wherever you want without the need of a visa. There's positives to being in the EU. It gives me a fucking migraine, man. There's positives to being in the EU, right? But the negatives far outweigh the positives. I can list the positives. I mean, fuck, we've been told them an awful fucking lot. But I can also list the negatives, the fucking ever-ending lists of crazy negatives that fucking drag this country through the fucking dirt, man. Absolutely unbelievable that anybody would support the EU after what they've done to us, and how the comments have pretty much been a summary of this. The deal that Theresa May has offered us to stay in the EU is a deal that only a country who has lost in war would accept. That's the summary of Theresa May's deal. Go read it.
In the end,
you've got no idea. Thank you. Why are you here today?
Why are you here?
I'm here to...
But mic was off. What are they doing now? What was the latest update? They're thinking of putting it back again, aren't they, or something? And old Juncker, whatever his name is saying he might extend it so it gives us more chance to come up with a better deal quicker or something, innit? He was saying.
Yeah, well,
that's what I've read lately.
We're talking about wanting a year extension.
Yeah.
EU army,
which takes us up to 2020, which is 2020, which is because the Lisbon Treaty came into effect actually in 2007, didn't it? It's actually
there's separate stages to it. There's stages to it, isn't there? The stages to the Lisbon Treaty. There's deadlines, and there's other things also tied into the Lisbon Treaty. It all goes very fucking deep, more than I'm willing to go into.
Ask questions of people who
that link about the bloke from the government and his missus. Clear.uk, Paul Kenwood. There you go.
I'll check it out. I'm just going to play the rest of this video.
Yeah.
In the end,
you've got no idea. Thank you. Why are you here today?
Why are you here?
I'm here to ask questions of people who are here protesting.
Yeah, I can't really talk to you.
You can't really talk. Why?
Because I despise you.
You despise me, so you can't answer questions because you despise me.
I might turn my camera around and just show you guys this picture because it's fucking hilarious.
Well then,
I've got it's a picture of him. Hang on, I've got to work out how to do this. How do we turn it round? Fucking no.
Click the screen, and the top right, you actually click your preview, and it should turn it. You click the picture of you on the screen.
That's what I'm bloody doing. Oh, I don't know. I'll turn it around that way. Can you see it that way? Because I should be able to see it on my screen in a second.
Yep, that's fine. Oh, yeah. Is that Theresa May's husband?
No, it's this guy. No, this is the guy who's Atkins, who's a drugs minister. That's her husband. Ken Woodward or something.
Unbelievable.
There you go. Unbelievable. And she's a drugs minister who wants it banned. Funny, isn't it?
It's pretty crazy,
Look
mate.
at him up there. He's proper smiling, isn't he? Sorry, guys. To show that as well, funny.
Right, I'm going to play the rest of this video.
Get angry. You might get angry, and we don't want that, do we? Bloody hell. Don't want you getting angry.
It's hilarious when he says that. Oh, Tommy like just mocks him, basically. It's fucking brilliant to rewind it, actually.
Why?
Because I despise you.
You despise me,
Yeah.
so you can't answer questions because you despise me.
Yeah, because I might get angry.
You might get angry, and we don't want that, do we? Bloody hell. Don't want you getting angry.
I think it's time for another
So
cup
come
of
on.
tea.
It's funny, yeah.
It is funny, yeah. So, because I'm shaking here, but you're not free to just answer simple questions about why you're here.
Yeah, right, ask.
Okay, why are you here today? We're leaving the European Union. My name's Tommy Robinson. I'm not hating.
Oh, yeah. Joking.
Yes.
You haven't turned up. You just full of hate.
Full of hate.
Yeah.
Can you delete that? Yeah.
I'm full of facts. So we have just got a border policy where one country, a dictatorship lady in Europe, makes decisions which will affect us all. So do you not think that the people in control of our country should be the people making the laws and deciding who comes into our country and who doesn't?
No, I think we're better together because Europe has done lots of really good laws.
No, it has, yeah. Yeah.
It's for everyone.
Yeah.
Okay?
So do you...
So terrorism, you know...
Just, it's part of it. As Sadiq Khan is part of life now.
Terrorism has been around forever. You know, people getting angry and doing shit has been going on.
Do you fundamentally believe that people have human rights that shouldn't be abused or not?
I fundamentally believe in the human rights process, but unfortunately there's 49 countries who signed the Cairo Declaration rather than the European Human Rights Agreement. So I believe in human rights, but I believe in the human rights of the British public before the human rights of terrorists.
Listen,
Go on, get your hand off me.
This city has just been attacked by people with the same view as
no,
you.
it's been attacked by the people that I oppose.
I want more immigrants, not less. If the Brits don't like it, they can get out.
No, but do you not see that?
I hate nationalism and I hate patriotism.
You hate patriotism? Do you hate Britain?
I hate the attitude.
See that flag there? The flag at the top of that tower. Do you hate that flag?
Right now,
Do you hate that flag? You hate this.
I don't really.
You're just here for the party.
Speaking of neo-Nazis, Tommy Robinson.
A neo-Nazi? Excuse me. Can you back that up? Excuse me. What? You're a neo-Nazi. A neo-Nazi, yeah?
With the EU flag on, waddling away like the little penguin she is. Fuck me, let's play that again. Now, see, she looks like someone that would be well into the Freeman movement, eh? I think so, guys. And so Tommy, he'd support it as well. But fuck me.
Here for the party.
Speaking of neo-Nazis, Tommy Robinson.
A neo-Nazi? Excuse me. Can you back that up? Excuse me. What? You're a neo-Nazi. A neo-Nazi, yeah? Leave. That's what I agree. We agree. We should leave.
Thank you for watching and click.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant video. 800 odd page, the Lisbon Treaty. Yeah, the Lisbon Treaty is very deep. Comes into full effect 2020. Oh, fuck it, me. Remember the 5th of November. Unbelievable. Hello, Chris.
Yep. I is back. A little bit.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post it into the chat. Okay, so we're going to open this. If you could like and share the broadcast, guys, it'd be much appreciated. YouTube and Facebook, both of them platforms run. It's there saved on YouTube for you to watch after. I'm going to paste this in. But what I'll do is I'll paste it in sequence. You have been sending too many messages. Blah blah blah. I can't send any more. Well, you know what? Bugger off. I don't care.
Listen, Dad, man, I'm gonna have to shift off. You know.
I think I might
double shift.
I think I might end the stream, to be honest.
Yeah, I get a bit knackered. Double shift tomorrow, man. Oh shit. Gonna be knackered.
You can find the rest of the rhyme elsewhere, guys. I got blocked from posting messages into the the YouTube. I posted too many, but they stay on the right hand side at the start of it. You can go look at the full one. Oh god. I think 5th of November is the day that we protest in London.
Oh, with V for Vendetta masks on.
Yep.
Do it properly.
Yeah, properly. That's it. Honestly, do it properly. No jokes, no bullshit. Do it properly.
Yeah.
That's the day you go. That's the day you go. 5th of November this year. I 100% believe that could be a thing. We could make that. Remember the 5th of November. Fuck me. At the time, Guy Fawkes was a fucking massive twat, right? He was blowing up Parliament at the wrong time in history, for sure. But I fucking can't comment on it. But yeah, remember the 5th of November, guys.
V for Vendetta.
Gunpowder, treason and plot. V for Vendetta, that's it. V for Vendetta.
That's it.
Sorry, didn't mean angry face. I didn't see it, so you're lucky there. Right, I'd put a document. Let's find a documentary to put on. One that's not copyright. Otherwise, I'll kill myself because fucking every time I put something on at the end of the stream, apart from the last one. Let's find something. I know what documentaries to find. I'll find a cannabis documentary. Watch a fair few of them, see if there's any good ones. There's Vice. Vice is a good one. I mean, they are a bit biased in terms of their news, but
Do some medical research one. That'd be quite interesting. If there is any.
We got a BBC, The Truth About Smoking Cannabis. 53 minutes long. Should we put some BBC on?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Okay, gonna put some food soon.
Sid.
Has this got any copyright on it? Song, Weed Won the West, Neil Scott album. Licensed to label engine on behalf of Street Music International Group.
User. And who are the people behind this blossoming billion-dollar industry that could sweep the nation depending on how the
Things to be said about Jeff and the way he ran his club.
Oh god, it's boring, that one. Don't worry guys, I'm flipping through these. There's a few that I've seen myself that are really good. Oh, A Lost History seems like a good one. Right, I'm gonna love you and leave you guys. This seems like the one.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Wait, read the comments. I didn't mean angry face. Sue Coat says, think I'm getting a ban on my Sue account for commenting about that nursery teacher who hit them poor kids. Oh, disgusting, man. Disgusting. Yeah. Tell you what I've got for her. Got one of these fucking things on the fucking head. Yeah. Fuck that bitch. Right, we're going to play a documentary on the legalization of weed. So, Cannabis, A Lost History. It's also going to go into the depth of it. Just the title says it all, right? It's just perfect for, you know, this whole thing. And there's no copyright, which is just brilliant. And it's educational category. The like to dislike ratio is immense. It's got 1.3 million views. It was published on 4th of January 2018, so it's recent. This documentary explores the long-standing relationship of human beings and cannabis, from its use in ancient Asia to its ban in 20th century America. Please note, information in this documentary does not take the place of medical advice. Any recipes, dosage, etc. are for historical reference only. Consult a doctor before using medical cannabis. Blah, 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 blah. Written, narrated and directed by Chris Rice and director of DMT, A Lost History. So there's one on DMT as well. We might talk about that tomorrow. But yeah, looking good. I'm going to full screen this. In fact, no, not yet. What I'm going to do is going to say bye first. Right, do you want to say anything, Chris?
Man, it's been a pleasure as always. I hope everybody sleeps well. I know I will.
Yeah, definitely.
In me lead bath.
I'm going to comatose myself on some food. I'm going to watch this documentary on the history of cannabis, and yeah, get some sleep.
Probably do the same. Play some Xbox.
Oh yeah, I've not played video games in so long. But anyway, guys.
Anyway.
I'll catch you later. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. We stream on YouTube and we stream on Facebook as well. As you can see, the chats, that's that side, the chats linked, so we're getting Facebook comments and we're getting YouTube comments all through at the same time. So whether you subscribe to the YouTube and turn notifications on, or you watch on Facebook, hello, I salute you for tuning into the stream. It's been great. If we get more and more momentum every time we do these streams, every time I come on the podcast, you know, we find more of a groove and more of a rhythm in terms of, you know, how to do this and what you guys like and what you don't. Again, share, like is much appreciated. Got a Facebook group, got everything. You can go over to Facebook and find that. If you're watching on YouTube, just search Freeman Movement or Jamie Freeman and Jamie Freeman page. That'll come up and it's all linked in together, and I'm sure you'll be able to find it. Thanks for watching, guys. The truth is out there.
See you later. Well done. Well done. That was okay. Sweet as.
In 2012, after 75 years of prohibition, Colorado and Washington state legalized recreational marijuana, with other states slowly but surely following suit. But long before prohibition, long before the United States even, cannabis had been established as an integral part of human civilization. From its depiction in the cave paintings of Japan to its usage in burial ceremonies in ancient China, it seems as though our relationship with weed likely goes back to the advent of our species. And if our endocannabinoid system is any indication, perhaps even before it. But while there is limited information about marijuana's role in early mammalian development, there is a wealth of evidence across virtually all cultures throughout history of its importance in textiles, medicine, and spirituality. This is the forgotten past of one of the most versatile plants ever discovered. This is cannabis, a lost history. The first reference material we have when it comes to cannabis is in the form of the Chinese Materia Medica, alleged to be written by Shen Nung in 2800 BCE. The earliest surviving copy of this book dates back to around 50 BCE. Shen Nung is a legendary figure in Chinese culture, part of a group of 3 kings called Celestial Emperors. Half emperor, half deity, he is said to have ruled over China long before written history, inventing irrigation, agriculture, the axe, the hoe, the plow, acupuncture, and traditional Chinese medicine in the process. He is often depicted draped in a garment of leaves, and often chewing on their stems to experiment with their effects on the human body. Shen Nung was essentially the first pharmacologist. In compiling the classic of herbal medicine, Shen Nung discovered the medicinal properties of cannabis, saying it was good for gout, rheumatism, malaria, absent-mindedness, as well as about 100 other things. Prior to this, the plant, which the Chinese called ma, had been used for many centuries for its fiber in producing cloth, paper, rope, and even in the production of pottery. As the Chinese continued to explore cannabis's benefits, they found it effective in the treatment of other ailments, like vomiting and infections. It is generally believed to have been used in moxibustion practice in acupuncture, being replaced in modern times with mugwort. Around 200 AD, a physician named Hua Tuo became the first person to use anesthesia in surgery, nearly 1600 years before its discovery in the West. And while Hua Tuo's formula for anesthesia has not survived into modern times, its name, Ma Fai Zan, translates approximately to cannabis boiling powder, and is widely accepted to have had cannabis as a component, with other candidates such as Jimson weed and opium proposed to be either in addition to or instead of marijuana. Cannabis was one of the 50 fundamental herbs in the traditional Chinese medicine toolkit. In modern times, with the questionable legality of its use, reference to ma in recent translations of the Chinese medical textbooks only make reference to non-psychoactive hemp seeds. But in antiquity, the Chinese were not shy about singing cannabis's praise. Confucius compiled the Book of Odes and the Canon of Rites, detailing poetry, song, and the religious ritual practices of the Chinese shamanism of his contemporaries and ancestors. Ma is mentioned numerous times throughout each of these collections. But perhaps more interesting is its frequent association with the burial ceremony during this time period. Cannabis has been found both burned and unburned, seed, bud, and everything in between, with burned seeds having been found in Kurgan burial mounds in Siberia and China, dating back to around 3000 BCE, and nearly 2 pounds of bud being discovered in the grave of what is believed to be a royal shaman in China's Xinjiang region. But through a network of trade routes, weed quickly found its way across the ancient world, intersecting with numerous cultures in the process. Coming up, we'll explore weed's spread throughout the East and its importance in the foundation of Indian culture. Is marijuana's popularity as a dietary staple, a medicine, and even the very plant from which clothing is made grew, China came to be known as the land of hemp and mulberry. Mulberries are high in protein, iron, vitamins, and minerals, just like cannabis, so it's no wonder that the two were both revered in this similar way. But while the earliest recorded history of cannabis comes from China, it is known to have been widely distributed in the fertile soil along the rivers of the ancient world. Along the banks of these great rivers, like the Yellow River in China, the Tigris and Euphrates in Mesopotamia, the Indus in India, and perhaps even the Nile in Egypt, civilization began to sprout up as well. And while it's unclear how exactly this knowledge of cannabis's medicinal and psychoactive properties spread, some evidence points to nomadic tribes emerging from the steppes of Central Asia, such as the Yamnaya, who also may have been responsible for the Kurgan burial mounds found throughout the region. Historians believe that these tribal groups of the Caucasus region helped to advance trade across Asia and Europe well before the Silk Road, spreading the wheel, horse domestication, and many other technologies of the time. Some subset of these tribes, who called themselves the Aryans, migrated from the north into what is now India, eventually merging with the people who had already inhabited the region, developing the prototypical Indo-Aryan language and culture in the process. From this culture, Indian and Iranian cultures, among many others, would ultimately be born. This proto-culture was also responsible for the invention of one of the earliest written languages, Sanskrit. Some of the earliest Sanskrit texts, the Vedas, meaning knowledge, are still in existence today. These texts are the basis of our knowledge of ancient Indian history, as well as spirituality, being important religious texts for both Zoroastrian and Hindu faiths. Cannabis, or bhang as it is called in India, is mentioned as one of 5 sacred plants in the 4th Veda. The Hindu god Shiva is sometimes referred to as Lord of the Bhang. There are several legends associating Shiva with cannabis, from him making it of his own flesh to help purify the Amrita, or elixir of life, to it being churned up from a sea of milk, along with the sacred cow and the moon by Shiva himself. One such legend states that Shiva, in the midst of an argument with his family, escaped to the mountains. As he continued to climb, he became tired from his journey in the sun's hot rays. He fell asleep beneath the plant. When he awoke, he became aware of the fragrant smell of the plant and decided to taste its leaves. Rejuvenated, Shiva made this ganja his favorite food, bringing it back to humanity, along with the art of yoga, a sort of instruction manual for the practice of using this sacred herb correctly. As a result, devotees of Shiva still consume bhang, ganja, and charas, 3 traditional preparations of cannabis, to this day. It is most commonly consumed in a drink known as bhang lassi, which is similar to the mango lassi popularized in the West, with bhang taking place of mango. This drink is especially used on holidays such as Holi and Shivratri, the festival of Shiva. Even in regions where it is illegal, an exception is made during these particular celebrations. The sadhus, yogic holy men, and devotees of Shiva smoke it in the form of ganja and charas on a daily basis, saying it brings them closer to Shiva. But as we will see, Hinduism isn't the only Indo-Aryan religious tradition to incorporate cannabis into its culture. Coming up, we'll explore marijuana's place in Buddhism, Sikhism, and the Zoroastrian faith. The Vedic religious tradition, the proto-religion of the Indo-Aryan people, served as the origin for both Zoroastrianism and Hinduism, with Hinduism developing in the Indian subcontinent and the Zoroastrian faith flourishing in Iran. The Persian prophet, Zoroaster, is believed to be the first to make mention of cannabis as a sacrament. In the Zend Avesta, a collection of important religious texts in Zoroastrianism, hemp appears first in a list of over 10,000 medicinal plants. It was considered the chief religious sacrament of the priest class and was generally unavailable to the common people. This priestly class would consume bhang, sometimes referred to as banga or mang, mixed with wine, after which it is said that their bodies rested while their minds went on a spiritual journey. In fact, many of our modern conceptual imagery of heaven and hell comes from Zoroastrian priest Ardak Waraf, who was known to go on journeys to these realms through the use of bhang. Zoroaster's own wife, dissatisfied with this secondary shamanic experience, prayed to the Supreme Being that he give her his good narcotic, bhanga. Back in India, a new religion was developing based on the teachings of a sage named Siddhartha Gautama. According to legend, Gautama, the Buddha, subsided on a diet of cannabis for 6 years before his revelations and ascent to Buddhahood. As he sat beneath the Bodhi tree for 40 days and 40 nights, he consumed only a single hemp seed per day. And while most sects of Buddhism have largely forgotten or ignored Bhang's important place in the life of the Buddha, a spiritual movement called Tantra sprung up in the 6th century, weaving Hindu and Buddhist beliefs into a new esoteric philosophy in which Bhang played a preeminent role. In the Maha-Nirvana Tantra, Bhang is said to assist in the Great Liberation. A prayer is contained in this sacred religious text that is supposed to accompany consumption of Bhang. When translated, it reads, "May this cannabis be a blessing to my heart." The Maha-Nirvana also states that Bhang is consumed in order to liberate oneself, and that those who do, in dominating their mental faculties and following the yoga or law of Shiva, are to be likened to immortals on earth. By the Middle Ages, Bhang became so popular, in fact, that it was often consumed before battle, much in the way that alcohol was in the West. They believed that the consumption of Bhang would make one's enemies feel possessed by spirits. A later religious tradition, Sikhism, which finds its roots in Tantra, forbids all drugs and alcohol, with Bhang being the only exception. They call it Sudnidan, meaning giver of peace. And when the Sikhs' founder was presented with Bhang by the Mughal king Babur, he was so delighted as to offer his blessing for Babur to have his kingdom for 7 generations. This Sudnidan was especially popular with a group of Sikh warriors known as the Nihang, who consume it to this day. And while colonialism has largely wiped out psychotropic plants the world over, the Sikhs received special permission from the British imperialists to continue using Sudnidan. In the late 1800s, when opium and other drugs of concern were made illegal in British colonies, a commission was set up who created a report on the importance of cannabis in Indian culture. It concludes that suppressing the use of Bhang would be unjustifiable due to its ancient religious use among Hindus and the view that it was harmless when used in moderation. When we return, we'll explore the spread of cannabis into the ancient Western world. The Aryan tribes that settled in Iran went on to form the Persian Empire, whose rule reached from the borders of India all the way to the land of Egypt by 500 BCE. But some suggest the Egyptians had knowledge of cannabis nearly 1,500 years before that. The oldest complete medical text, the Ebers Papyrus, as well as other writings of the time, contain reference to a plant, Shum-Shum-Tu, which was created by the sun god Ra and used in ceremonies honoring the dead. It is believed by many to be none other than marijuana. Shum-Shum-Tu, used medicinally, was often combined with honey and used in topical medical preparations for inflammation. Whether this interpretation of Shum-Shum-Tu's identity is correct or not, there is other evidence indicative of ancient Egyptian knowledge of cannabis. For example, the goddess Shashat is almost universally depicted with a 7-pointed symbol, often resembling the 7-pointed marijuana leaf above her head. Similarly, hemp fibers have been discovered in the tomb of Akhenaten, with hemp pollen found inside of the mummy of Ramesses II, who died nearly 700 years before the Persian conquest of Egypt. Both of these samples have undergone chemical analysis and confirmed to be weed. There are also numerous hieroglyphics showing what appear to be smoking pipes or ceremonial incense burners. And while these have been attributed by some to represent ceremonial use of the blue lotus flower, which itself is psychoactive, most researchers agree that blue lotus was steeped in wine as opposed to being smoked. But while evidence of ancient Egyptian knowledge of marijuana's psychoactive properties is mostly circumstantial, there is an unmistakable written record by their Greek counterparts. In fact, the word cannabis comes from an ancient Greek translation of a Scythian word. It is generally believed that hemp, hanep in Old English, comes from the same Scythian source. But the Grecian relationship with cannabis is not purely etymological. The Greek historian Herodotus was the first person to make any mention of cannabis in Western literature. He wrote extensively on the Scythian people, a nomadic tribe that he had encountered in his many travels. According to Herodotus, the Scythians used cannabis in the manufacture of their clothes. They also used it in the religious ceremony accompanying a funeral. They anoint and wash their heads, and for their bodies set up 3 poles leaning together to a point, and cover these over with wool mats. Then, in the space so enclosed to the best of their ability, they make a pit in the center beneath the poles and the mats and throw red stones into it. The Scythians then take this cannabis and, crawling into the tent, throw it on the red-hot stones, where it smolders and sends forth such fumes that no Greek vapor bath could surpass it. The Scythians howl in their joy caused by the vapors. And while mainstream historians tend to reject the idea that these practices found their way into Greek culture, there appears to be evidence to the contrary. For instance, the Scythians, notorious for their warlike nature, made up a large part of the Greek police force. It is highly unlikely, then, that their unique cultural traditions would not be continued during their tenure in Greece. What's more, Herodotus makes reference of another nomadic tribe whose use of cannabis was not so sacramental. He said, "They have parties and sit around a fire. They throw some of it into the flames. As it burns, it smokes like incense, and the smell of it makes them drunk, just as wine does. As more fruit is thrown on, they get more and more intoxicated until finally they jump and start dancing and singing." Outside of these direct references, it should also be taken into account that the ancient Greeks had continuing conflict with the Aryan tribes that went on to form the Persian Empire. It's very likely that through the Persian invasion, cannabis came to be known in Greece. But regardless of how they first encountered it, ancient Greek physicians used cannabis medicinally to treat a variety of conditions, such as edema and even tumors. It seems impossible, then, that its psychoactive properties would go unnoticed by the philosophically minded among the ancient Greeks. And while there's little about this in academia, it's more likely because of the taboo nature of entheogenic research, and less so because Grecian use of cannabis did not exist. Another possible reason for the limited information on the topic is that psychospiritual rituals of ancient Greek philosophers were heavily guarded secrets. While generally shrouded in mystery, there are some indications of cannabis's psychoactive use in ancient Greece. For one, we have ancient Greek writings of an incense known as Scythian fire being used in the cult of Asclepius, the god of medicine. Additionally, the Thracians, another nomadic tribe living among the Greeks, had within them a group known to the Greeks as Kapnobatai, or smoke walkers. These smoke walkers were dancers and shaman who used the smoke of hemp to bring about a trance-like state. These Persian, Thracian, and Scythian practices hardly went unnoticed by the Greeks. In fact, the ancient Greek word kannabizin, meaning to burn cannabis, is believed to have taken place in the form of incense burners, burning cannabis along with frankincense resin, which is also known to be psychoactive, as well as other fragrant resins such as myrrh and balsam. It's not inconceivable, then, that such an incense may have played a role in some of the numerous divination rituals practiced in ancient Greece by the likes of Socrates and Pythagoras. What is known for sure, though, is that cannabis found its way to Rome via their conquest of Greece, in appropriation of Greek philosophy, science, and art, including Dioscorides' Materia Medica, a classic that influenced Western medicine well into the Middle Ages. But perhaps some of the most controversial references to cannabis in antiquity come from the Judeo-Christian Bible. In the first half of the 20th century, the Polish anthropologist Dr. Sula Bennett discovered a glaring error in modern translations of the Bible. She noted that the Bible's many mentions of sweet calamus only went as far back as the Septuagint, an early Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. The problem with this is that calamus has virtually none of the properties it's purported to have in the Bible. Bennett demonstrated that the original Hebrew script used the term kane bosom, which she believed was without any doubt cannabis. In fact, Dr. Bennett believed that kane bosom may even predate the Scythian term cannabis. This kane bosom was referenced multiple times in the Old Testament. Take, for instance, Exodus chapter 30, in which God instructs Moses to make a holy anointing oil. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Take for yourself choice spices, 500 shekels of pure myrrh, half as much of fragrant cinnamon, 250 shekels of cannabisum, and 500 shekels of cassia, and mix these with olive oil." This holy anointing oil was used to make the temple, the altar, and, quote, burned offerings most holy. And the Bible goes on to say that anything that touches these, too, would become holy. This anointing oil, in the Old Testament and in Judaism, was used to baptize the likes of kings and priests, ultimately leading to the Hebrew term Messiah, meaning the Anointed One. Which begs the question, did Jesus himself use cannabis? It is well documented in the Old Testament that a sacred incense, burned offerings, and a holy anointing oil containing cannabosum were an established part of the rituals of ancient Israelites. These ceremonies were conducted in a tabernacle, a temple similar to that of their Scythian counterparts, who have been shown through ancient historical sources to have traded with and occasionally fought against the ancient Jewish people. It is no surprise, then, that the Old Testament describes cannabosum as being an exotic herb from a faraway land. But the New Testament makes basically no direct reference to cannabosum itself. So, did Jesus know of or use cannabis? It seems that the answer may very well be yes. Christ is a Greek term meaning the anointed one, as opposed to being Jesus' last name, as some believe. In fact, last names generally did not originate until the Middle Ages. These terms, Christ and Messiah, are indicative of the fact that Jesus was anointed in the holy anointing oil. The very same oil used by Moses and Aaron to initiate the priestly class into their faith centuries earlier. As is well documented in the Bible, Jesus was scholarly when it came to his Jewish faith from an early age, teaching the rabbis in the temple at the age of 13. It's highly likely, then, that he was aware of the formula of the anointing oil. In fact, while the New Testament doesn't mention cannabosum directly, anointing seems to be a key part of Jesus' ministry. Jesus anointed the 12 disciples and then sent them out to anoint others in the holy oil. As put in Mark 6:13, they were casting out many demons and were anointing with oil many who were sick and healing them. There are many references throughout the Bible to Jesus' anointing and healing those throughout the region. References to casting out demons may, in fact, be referring to epilepsy, which cannabis oil is known to treat. Similarly, Jesus heals leprosy, which has been commonly treated with cannabis in many ancient cultures. He is also said to have healed a blind man. In modern times, we know cannabis to successfully treat glaucoma. But outside of his many healing miracles, Jesus anointed people, namely, to introduce them to the Holy Spirit. As stated in the first epistle of St. John, I am writing you in this way about those who would deceive you, but the oil you receive from him remains within you, and you really need no teaching from anyone. Simply remain in him, for his oil teaches you about everything, and is true, and is no lie. Remain in him, as his oil has taught you to do. This anointing of common people, and further Gentiles or non-Jews, is in direct violation of Hebrew law, as God dictated to Moses in Exodus. Anyone who makes a blend like it or anoints someone other than a priest with it will be cut off from the community. Is it possible, then, that this could have played a role in the Hebrew elders' contention towards Jesus, or their decision to condemn him to death? Whether you believe in the historicity of Jesus or not, it's clear that this holy anointing oil was extremely special to the early Christians. While the Gospels found in the Bible appear to confirm Jesus' anointing oil, they're just a small fraction of the Christian Gospels of antiquity. Before the canon of Jesus' life was solidified by the Roman Emperor Constantine in the 3rd century, a number of early Christian sects, collectively known as the Gnostics, meaning knowledge, all had their own interpretations of Christianity. In one such work, the Gospel of Philip, the author says, The anointing is superior to baptism, for from the anointing we were called anointed ones, or Christians, not because of the baptism. And Christ too was so named because of the anointing. For the Father anointed the Son, and the Son anointed the apostles, and the apostles anointed us. Therefore, he who has been anointed has the all. He has the resurrection, the light, the Holy Spirit. If one receives this unction, this person is no longer just a Christian, but a Christ. Similarly, the Gospel of Truth says that Jesus came specifically so that he might anoint them with the ointment. The ointment is the mercy of the Father. Those whom he has anointed are the ones who have become perfect. And in the Gospel of Thomas, thought by many to be the earliest Christian text, the anointing oil is praised more specifically as a plant derivative. Holy oil, given us for sanctification. You are the unfolder of the hidden parts. You are the one who shows the hidden treasures. You are the plant of kindness. Let your power come by this unction. But when the Romans, the former persecutors of the Christians, who had fed them to the lions, decided to make Christianity the official state religion and decided exactly which version of Christianity would be practiced, all of these early Gnostic practices became punishable by death, being conveyed in a symbolic manner before ultimately falling by the wayside. Interestingly enough, it is almost as if Jesus saw this coming, as he is quoted as saying in Mark 4-11 and 12, "To you has been given the secret of the kingdom of God, but for those outside, everything is in parables, so that they may indeed see but not perceive, and may indeed hear but not understand." It's worth noting that Judaism and Christianity aren't the only monotheistic religions where cannabis played a role. In the 7th century, the Persian Empire, once home to Zoroastrians and Scythians alike, was in decline. A new religion arose, rejecting the pagan tribal religions of the Arabs. This new faith, Islam, had its roots in the Abrahamic or Judeo-Christian religious traditions. Islam's founder, the Prophet Muhammad, was very direct in forbidding intoxicants, but seems to refer specifically to alcohol. Could it be that he, too, used cannabis? Both the Hadith and the Quran describe a night journey in which Muhammad flew on the back of a winged horse, ultimately visiting heaven to speak with Allah. Some sects of Islam believe this story to refer to an out-of-body experience, potentially one influenced by an entheogen. And with this region of the world having a long-standing tradition, even then, of using cannabis, and particularly hash, it is very possible that, should this journey have required an entheogen to take place, it was most likely cannabis. But while there isn't much in the way of evidence for Muhammad's cannabis use, we know for sure the long-standing tradition of cannabis consumption in the Middle East did not die with the foundation of Islam. Although some take the Prophet's proclamations that intoxicants are haram or forbidden to extend to cannabis as well as alcohol, it is known to have been used medicinally by some Arab physicians, the world leaders in medicine during the Middle Ages. That said, its use was not solely medicinal for the Muslims of this time. The Sufis, a mystical sect of Islam, used cannabis to bring themselves to higher states of consciousness and better appreciate the nature of Allah and the natural beauty of His creation. As the Sufi poet Fuzu Li once said, "Hashish is the perfect being, sought after by mankind with great eagerness. It may not be the perfect being for everybody, but it most certainly is for the seekers of mystical experience." But Fuzu Li certainly wasn't the only one singing cannabis's praise. In fact, many Sufis ate a hash preparation known as majun as an act of worship, believing it to allow the spirit to ascend to the highest points in a heavenly ascension of disembodied understanding. But even though the Quran doesn't refer to the Prophet as using cannabis, it does mention a figure known as the Green Prophet, or Al-Qadir. Al-Qadir is borrowed from earlier Arabic religious traditions. Originally, the Green Prophet seemed to symbolize fertility and vegetation, with flowers and plants magically blooming from the ground on which he walked. By medieval times, he came to represent the type of esoteric knowledge that breaks you free from the trance of everyday existence through shock, much like the change in perception one may feel under the influence of entheogens. As a result of his association with shocking realization, he has come to be somewhat of a patron of saints, of artists working with unbound enthusiasm. But much of cannabis's use through the early centuries of Islam is unrelated to the Quran or Hadith. As discussed earlier, hashish was commonly used by the Sufis and likely came into existence via the earlier charas, popular in India and the Persian Empire. But cannabis wasn't the only substance used by the Sufis to better understand the nature of Allah. They are thought of as having been instrumental in the development of coffee houses as we now know them. Legend has it that a wandering Sufi once revealed how he had prepared this new and unique drink to a Sunni woman. He prepared the beverage using a hash-filled hookah. This preparation could be responsible for the long-standing tradition of hookah lounges serving coffee, and even coffee houses serving cannabis, which they did in the Middle East for several centuries and continue to do in parts of Europe, most notably Amsterdam. But the Sufis weren't the only branch of Islam to partake in cannabis use. Marco Polo once wrote of a mysterious old man of the mountain who led a secretive band of Shia warriors in battle against the Sunnis. These warriors, the Nizari of Syria, would use hash to make them more focused on their targets and more in tune with the consequences of every movement, and they were often tasked with taking out high-level targets shrouded in the cover of night. These Nizari came to be referred as Hashishins for their use of hashish. This word, through time, evolved into the word assassin, which generally referred to hired killers who use similar tactics to this day. Perhaps because of its association with assassins, there were many attempts to suppress the use of cannabis in the Middle East, beginning in about the 14th century in Egypt, where it had grown extremely popular, especially for its ability to enhance music. Cannabis use became a crime whose punishment was to have one's teeth pulled out. But cannabis users, so attached to their hashish, did not stop its use, and ultimately, these attempts at suppression failed, only being realized many centuries later by Western interference. When we return, how did cannabis use fare in pre-Enlightenment Europe, where any aberration from mainstream Christianity was viciously punished? Knowledge of cannabis's medicinal properties spread throughout Europe by way of the Roman Empire. It found its way into the hands of the Germanic tribes that had come to inhabit Western Europe, where its seeds had served as a food source for ancient Germans. In the Middle Ages, these peoples, who had earlier been converted to Christianity at the hands of the Romans, have become infamous in history for their use of torture. But the idea of cannabis as inherently bad is a relatively recent construct, and so its use did not seem to go punished in medieval European society. In fact, its psychoactive properties are largely underreported by the Europeans of this time period, who seem to more prominently use psychoactive mushrooms, alcohol, and datura species for inebriation. While it continued to be used as a medicine, much of European society during this time cultivated it for use of its fibers. Up until the late Renaissance period, cannabis continued to be thought of as little more than a source of fiber in Western Europe. But the discovery of America heralded the dawn of a new era in intercontinental trade, and along with it, a changing cultural paradigm. Soon, smoking, which had been virtually unheard of in Western Europe until that point, became vogue across the continent due to a steady influx of American tobacco. Meanwhile, the Queen of England instructed every landowner with more than 60 acres to begin growing hemp for industrial use, with Henry VIII fostering its use by the Navy. In time, Spanish and English explorers independently introduced cannabis to the Americas, with the Pilgrims bringing the utilitarian crop with them on the Mayflower. In fact, the first law regarding cannabis in the New World actually required farmers to grow it, a far cry from the draconian laws instituted just a few short centuries later. Back in Europe, Dutch explorer Jan Hogen van Linschoten wrote of his tales to the Near East, where he had encountered hashish, a preparation of cannabis leaves that, like ancient Greek philosopher Galen had once described, filleth the head. And while cannabis use did not take off in Europe immediately thereafter, an awareness of this powerful plant began to grow, especially among the creative communities. Among its users during this time period was famed playwright William Shakespeare. While unknown until recently, Shakespeare is now believed to have smoked weed, as indicated by the numerous smoking pipes containing cannabis resin discovered on the grounds of his former property. Pipes that date back to the time in which Shakespeare lived. As we've discussed, Shakespeare wasn't the first writer to utilize the sacred herb, and he certainly wasn't the last. It is well documented in history textbooks that the founding fathers of America were wealthy farmers. What they farmed, however, is almost never discussed. These men, and many of their countrymen alike, were actually hemp farmers, as hemp was used in the manufacturing of rope, clothes, and other goods. Growing cannabis was so much a part of the American culture that weed was even depicted on the back of the $10 bill in the early 1900s, which was also printed on hemp paper. In fact, Thomas Jefferson once said, "Hemp is of first necessity to the wealth and protection of the country." But rest assured, in those early days of the US, cannabis was used for a lot more than simply making textiles. George Washington is known to have used it medicinally for toothaches and said, "Make the most of the Indian hemp seed and sow it everywhere." James Madison, the father of the Constitution, once claimed that hemp gave him the insight to form a new and democratic nation. And James Monroe, who took up the habit of smoking cannabis during his tenure as an ambassador to the French, smoked it until his death. But the American founders weren't the only world leaders of this time period who used cannabis. In the 1830s, an Irish physician named William Brooke O'Shaughnessy saw marijuana being used medicinally while on a trip to India. Astonished at its efficacy, O'Shaughnessy brought the plant back with him to England, introducing this Indian hemp to physicians there for use in the treatment of everything from arthritis to epilepsy. Soon, Queen Victoria of England began using medical marijuana for her menstrual cramps, under instruction from her physician. Independent of O'Shaughnessy's reintroduction of medical cannabis, Napoleon's army brought hash back with them from their excursions in Egypt, and appear to be the true beginnings of widespread hashish consumption in the early modern period in Europe. By the mid-1800s, a group of French luminaries started the Club des Hachiciens, a Parisian club dedicated to the consumption of hash and other drugs. One of the most esteemed writers of this circle, Charles Baudelaire, wrote the poem Hashish and Artificial Paradises, lauding the use of hashish and opium, insisting that they, theoretically, could aid mankind in reaching an ideal world. In America, Fitzhugh Ludlow wrote The Hashish Eater about his numerous experiences eating cannabis. This book became wildly popular, with President Lincoln's Secretary of State, John Hay, fondly remembering eating hashish and dreaming dreams during his youth at Brown University. When we return, marijuana's shift in public perception from medicine to menace. As reports of marijuana's efficacy began to be published, it quickly became mainstream medicine across Europe and the United States, primarily in the form of extracts, which were used for an ever-increasing array of conditions. But by the early 1900s, the American Medical Association was established, creating an orthodoxy in medical treatment that some argue demonized herbal healers. This uniformity allowed for heavy licensing fees for physicians, which many traditional practitioners were incapable of paying. The AMA, a private company, soon had a monopoly on the medical industry. Cannabis was banned in California, Massachusetts, and a handful of other states shortly thereafter, while many physicians and pharmacists, under the new regulations, embraced the potential of this wonder drug. During the Prohibition era, in which alcohol and other drugs were banned nationwide, a number of other states soon followed suit in penalizing cannabis use. Interestingly, in states that did not ban the herb, cannabis served as somewhat of a replacement for booze, with shops called tea pads opening up that offered cannabis-based tea, a legal intoxicant that served as a loophole in a country unaccustomed to its new, inebriant-free lifestyle. From there, its popularity only increased, becoming widely used among American jazz musicians and expat writers of what is referred to as the Lost Generation in Paris, one of whom was Gertrude Stein. Her lover, Alice B. Toklas, is often credited with having invented the pot brownie during this time period. Meanwhile in America, advancements to a machine called the decorticator allowed hemp fibers to be stripped from the plant at a far more efficient rate, leading to popular mechanics calling cannabis the new billion-dollar crop. Hemp had already been superior in that it takes significantly less time to grow than trees. But now, with production simplified by the decorticator, it was really no contest whatsoever. This didn't sit well with publisher and industrialist William Randolph Hearst, who, aside from owning much of the media at this time, also owned the paper factories on which his newspapers were printed. Soon, he began publishing propaganda pieces, insisting that Mexican immigrants who smoked cannabis violently raped women. As society had grown familiar with cannabis and its many benefits, Hearst chose to use the term marijuana, which had, up until this point, only been used to describe a wild Mexican variety of tobacco completely unrelated to cannabis. Soon, the dangers of this new supposed threat had alarmed American society. A small church group produced a morality tale entitled "Tell Your Children" about this new drug that supposedly made its users turn violent.
Marijuana, the burning weed with its roots in hell.
At this time, a new motion picture code had recently been instituted by the US government, which prevented movies from featuring gratuitous violence or sex. An opportunistic film producer, Dwayne Esper, purchased Tell Your Children, recutting the film to include such taboo behavior so he could distribute it on the exploitation film circuit that had sprung up in response to these new film regulations. He renamed it Reefer Madness.
Debauchery, violence, murder, suicide, and the ultimate end of the marijuana addict. Hopeless insanity. See this important pill now, before it is too late.
For Esper, like Hearst, it was really all about the money. But the American people truly did begin to fear this dangerous drug, marijuana, largely due to the steadily growing stream of propaganda. Hearst quickly used his resources to begin lobbying politicians, including Harry Anslinger, head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, a precursor to today's DEA. Up until that point, the FBN was in charge of preventing opiates, like heroin, from being smuggled into the country. But Anslinger soon made marijuana a top priority, drafting the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937 to greatly diminish the strength of the hemp industry that was beginning to affect both Hearst, paper, and DuPont's nylon sales. Even the American Medical Association believed that the act went too far. They claimed that the bill, which had quickly been drafted in secrecy, did not allow adequate time to prepare a legal opposition. Also, with the term marijuana used instead of cannabis, the AMA's legal defense, Dr. William Creighton Woodward, argued that marijuana is not the correct term, yet the burden of this bill is placed heavily on the doctors and pharmacists of this country. In spite of all this, the new law was passed hastily, facing little opposition. The first string of arrests were made the following day. Part of the new law indicated that tax stamps were supposed to be given to those interested in growing cannabis, but virtually none were issued. And farmers feared that by seeking the government's approval on the matter, they would be incriminating themselves. One of the main opponents of the law was the mayor of New York City, Fiorello LaGuardia, for whom LaGuardia Airport is named. In 1938, he appointed a commission to investigate the new bill, later creating the LaGuardia Committee, to oppose Anslinger's draconian campaign against cannabis. The committee was unsuccessful, and in 1942, cannabis was officially removed from medical texts. That same year, the U.S. Department of Agriculture and even the Army themselves urged farmers to grow hemp, releasing a propaganda film of their own, Hemp for Victory, talking about the importance of the crop.
This is hemp seed. Be careful how you use it. For to grow hemp legally, you must have a federal registration and tax stamp. This is provided for in your contract. Ask your AAA committeeman or your county agent about it. Don't forget.
Soon, with World War II in full swing, tax stamps were issued to allow the plant to be grown. But this change of heart was short-lived, and cannabis arrests continued, increasing during this period, as did the drug's popularity. Finally, in 1969, after being arrested for possession, Harvard professor and psychedelic pioneer Timothy Leary challenged the Marijuana Tax Act in court.
You've been arrested a number of times for possession of marijuana. Were any of those legitimate?
No, as a matter of fact, I've never been legitimately arrested. I'm in prison now because one evening I was in a parked car and a policeman came up to the car and opened the door against my wishes, made a pass at the ashtray and said, "You're under arrest for what?" I said, "For marijuana." I said, "What marijuana?" He reached in his pocket, pulled out 2 joints I'd never seen before, half joints. I said, "You're under arrest."
In Leary versus the United States, it was determined by a federal judge that the Marijuana Tax Act was unconstitutional, and the law was overruled. In response, Congress passed the Controlled Substance Act of 1970 to ensure that cannabis remained illegal, as it was used heavily by the anti-war hippie counterculture and Black Americans fighting for civil rights. The DEA was born. President Nixon hired a team of scientists to prove the dangers of this substance to help justify his decision. When just the opposite was found, and the commission he had appointed called for the decriminalization of marijuana, he threw the study in the trash. Cannabis has been illegal at the federal level ever since. Over the years, numerous states have seen the error of their ways and decriminalized it, with some legalizing it for medicinal and even recreational purposes. Now, nearly 3/4 of the U.S. population supports legalization, but there has been a heavy pushback by the federal government, with lobbyists from the private prison industry and the Prison Guards Union, among many others, objecting to any legalization efforts. Thousands remain in prison, largely due to the propaganda and anti-drug sentiment of years past. It's worth noting the racial disparity in these drug arrests, with the majority of incarcerated non-violent drug offenders being minorities. That's why it's now more important than ever for us, as a society, to look at humanity's long-standing history of cannabis consumption as a dietary staple, a sacrament, a medicine, and even its use as a textile, and to realize the error of our ways. Cannabis users are not the violent rapists they were made out to be in the 1930s, any more than they are the lazy slacker stereotype perpetuated by the media today. While there are certainly people smoking weed in their mom's basement, other users are doctors, lawyers, religious leaders, and yes, even politicians, along with virtually all other facets of the American public, with cannabis being one of the most widely consumed drugs. Modern studies have concluded that it is hundreds of times safer than alcohol. It's even safer than Tylenol. The fail laws of yesteryear, the narrow, two-dimensional stereotypes, the anti-science and anti-intellectual arguments for prohibition, need to be revisited, questioned, and challenged. For those fighting against cancer, which more than 100 studies prove cannabis can kill, or people suffering from epilepsy, on which CBD has a profound effect, or people with autism, or Alzheimer's, or gout, for the people serving time in jail for getting caught with a couple of grams, for the innovators, the artists, seekers of a deeper insight, the writers, the prophets, for the betterment of humanity.
That has been the conclusive documentary on cannabis. It's pretty good. I enjoyed that. It was very deep and it explained a lot of things, especially the history of it, and even brought it to its climax of present day. Ooh.
We're on the side of a mountain and there's about
Yeah, it was very enjoyable. If you enjoyed the stream, you've watched up to this point, thank you for the support again. Hope you learned something. I certainly did. I do every day. I try to every day. Share the stream. Even though it's finished, it'll go up as a re-upload. If you're watching on YouTube, drop a like. It really does affect and help the analytics of the YouTube channel. It helps it grow. And even over on Facebook, if you're watching this, share the stream. It'll go up as a replay. And if you've liked what you've seen, maybe someone will learn something as well and also like it and join the Freeman movement and become more enlightened by the things that we are sure to discuss in the future. Thanks for watching, guys. The truth is out there.